Pleasant good evening, Barbados. This is Marcia Weeks, and you are watching the Marcia Weeks Show. We are coming to you live from Barbados. It's 7 p.m. here in Barbados, and this is a unusual one. We know we're normally on at Wednesdays at 1 o'clock, but listen, there is a need. Once there is a need, we're going to jump on. So I'm going to ask you already. I see quite a few persons are logged on, and we're going to ask you to share. We have lots of business to take care of tonight, so we're going to ask you to share. This is important, Barbados. This is for Barbados. We are aware that others from the other Caribbean islands, they normally watch, but tonight it's for Barbados. Barbadians, the question is the Barbados government keeping you in the dark? Barbados, wake up. We all know there's no opposition in our government, and with a Senate that supports the government. Of course, we have a few independent senators assigned by the same government. It is no wonder the new pension bill and NIS bill will most likely be passed in the Senate on Wednesday. Did you hear that? They are seeking to pass this NIS bill in the Senate on Wednesday. When was the bill introduced? When was it read in Parliament? It was read in Parliament only on Friday. Was it brought to the public? Was it put in the official gazette? It was only read in Parliament on Friday. Today is Sunday. Yesterday was Saturday, a holiday. And then we have a Saturday week was a weekend, right? So we have weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and then holiday on Monday and on Tuesday and on Wednesday. They're taking it to the Senate, which they already is a Senate that supports the government. You have to ask yourself, where does the people factor in and the public factor in? Yeah. The public was not given any serious opportunity to review or analyze the bill. And that's really one of the reasons why we're having this show this evening. We're also going to look at that bill, a bit, go into it, pull it apart. We have CASWELL FRANKLYN here with us this evening, and Maxine McCLEAN will be joining us as well. Yes? Why the rush to pass the bill in the Senate when there definitely will be no opportunity for public input? As I said earlier, Monday and Tuesday are holidays. And this has been done in the middle of Krapover. And after 2 public holidays, partying, fetes, walking up, everything happening, drinking, Barbadians, wake up. Is this deliberate? We're going to put a link in the chat section of the show. And I'm going to ask you to go ahead and, there's going to come a time we're going to ask you're going to be able to come into the show and just to share your views. This is one place you're going to be able to share what are your views? What's happening? Let your voice be heard. We're still waiting. I'm still waiting on Miss McCLEAN to join us. And while I'm doing that, guys, we're going to hit the road running this evening. Okay. Yeah, we're going to hit the road running, and I have with me ready to go Mr. CASWELL FRANKLYN. And please share up this live, Barbados. Barbados, share up this live. Share up this live. Mr. FRANKLYN is getting ready to come on. This is a time for Barbados to wake up. Barbados, wake up. Barbados, wake up. So we're going to invite Mr. CASWELL right now. To join us. Good evening, Mr. FRANKLYN. Good to see you.
Good evening, Marcia. It's nice having you here in my house, and I'm in yours.
Well, both of us were there resting ourselves on Sunday evening. Sunday evening you have your Sunday lunch and you just laze around and you rest and so on. What is it that got you off of your couch in front of your TV? Or your iPad or whatever? What is it that got you off of your time of relaxation to be on here with us this evening? What's on your mind?
This absolute deception that the government is perpetrating on the people of this country in terms of the pensions Amendment and the National Insurance amendments. First, let me tell you, right, that if Barbados don't wake up, we will find one day that we don't have any country in any country at all. It will be belonging to the Barbados Labour Party and the people who run it. There is nothing in this legislation that was necessary or urgent. I don't understand why you would have something brought to Parliament on a Friday. The normal parliamentary day is Tuesday. You bring the Parliament as though it's an emergency, that you think that something's going to happen like that with COVID, and you rush it through Parliament in all its stages, and they're going to do it in the Senate next week. And that is to deceive people. Now, let me tell you why I say this, right? I've studied the legislation because it's not very long. And when I look at the legislation, the only thing in this legislation that is different from what the National Insurance Board can do right now is to hire staff. That is the only thing. Everything else in this legislation can be achieved under the current legislation, except hire staff. Section 11 of the National Insurance and Social Security Act prevents the board from hiring staff. It put that as a civil service function. And there was a reason for that. Errol Barrow, who introduced the National Insurance Scheme, the right excellent Errol Barrow, he decided that the board should concentrate on the investment of the funds and leave mundane things like personnel work to the personnel professionals. And as a matter of fact, the only statutory board in Barbados that has this provision is the National Insurance Board, because the National Insurance is a statutory board. They are changing it from a board to a board. They are trying to trick people, talking about giving it establishing a corporate body. National Insurance is already a corporate body, and it can sue and it can be sued. It isn't like if you sue National Insurance, you don't have to sue the Attorney General. If, for instance, the ministry have you are you have to sue the Attorney General, not sue National Insurance. National Insurance is a separate legal entity already. And they're saying, oh, they want to be able to do commercial things. Now, if building all those buildings and renting them out isn't commercial, what is? Because if you go to Warren's, just a little bit from here, you will see a building on the hill where you get the ID cards and stuff from. That belongs to National Insurance. National Insurance built that and is renting it to government, not for government to pay the rent. The one and Warren bottom, they call Bob Towers. National Insurance built that and renting it to the government. They are building a fire station. No, National Insurance don't need a fire station. So if they're not investing in government already and they're not done commercial things, what is they're renting? That's commercial activity. So why it can't do other commercial activity, only rent the government? No, they're deceiving us. But they're deceiving
so let me say, let's be clear. So you're saying that the old NIS bill or document that governs how the NIS is run, it's not much different. The only thing is its ability to employ.
Yes, that's the only difference that this bill now has that the other one doesn't have. For instance, Section 4 of the National Insurance and Social Security Act says, the board shall be a body corporate, having perpetual succession and a common seal. That's subsection 1. 2, the board may sue and be sued in its corporate name and may for all purposes be described by such name and service upon the board of any notice, order, or other document of whatsoever kind shall be executed by delivering the same to or sending it by registered post addressed to the secretary, the board, at the principal office of the board. The board shall have the right to acquire and hold real or personal property for the purposes for which the board is constituted and subject to the approval of the minister to dispose of or to charge any property. It is already a corporate entity. It isn't a normal statutory board, like a government department that can't operate unless you have the Attorney General. It has its own structure already. The only difference is Section 11 of the National Insurance and Social Security Act that says, and I will read it for you. It says, staff. The minister shall, by order under Section 2 of the Civil Establishment Act, Cap 21, establish the offices which shall constitute the offices of the board's establishment, which offices shall, for all purposes, be deemed to be offices in the public service.
So now it's the minister that is now employing.
No, this is the minister of the civil service. This is how you create jobs in the public service. The minister responsible for the public service,
right,
publishes an order. It used to be the Civil Establishments Act, but it's now the Public Service Act. And the minister determines after the department put forward, well, we need people for this amount, that this salary we want to pay. The minister's advisors then tell the minister, okay, it's okay. And the minister signs off. The minister don't really do any work in that regard. The professionals then go through and say, well, this is, they really need these, or they don't need all these people, or whatever else. And that's how it's supposed to be done. National Insurance over the years, even though they had no authority to hire staff, started doing it. And paying them, and they don't know how they pay them, but the National Insurance money, this must be embezzlement for all intents and purposes, because if you have no authority to spend money in hiring people and you do that, then you have broken the law. But
so why do you think that, Mr. Franklin, I this is so important what you're saying, but why do you think that this is now a change in this new NIS bill?
You see, why they want that is that there are certain jobs in the public service that have to have certain qualifications for the particular post. If you don't have the post, there's something called the Public Service Qualifications Order. Now, if you don't have those qualifications, you can't get the job. Now, if I have seen at statutory boards where some person ended up being general manager, and the only thing they left secondary school with was their empty lunch box, and they ended up being general managers of a statutory board. So, because even though you might have qualifications set up for statutory boards, they're not enforceable in law. The board could decide, well, oh, I don't mind what the qualifications say, I'm still going to hire these people anyway. Or the minister can call and say, well, look, yeah, I know you got qualifications, but this is my man.
Right.
So you hire him. You cannot do that in a government department. So in order to affect that change, the government come up with all this ruse. It's a ruse. Because they said here in the legislation that it was set up, it would set up committees. The old legislation said the board can set up committees, whatever committees it thinks fit. So even if you give those committees a name now, the board could think fit and give it those names. It is nothing new.
So why do you think they are? Because it's very strange. All I'm saying, it is very strange. It seems like they're keeping us, something they want to keep us in the dark about, that they would present it for reading on Friday, and by Wednesday, the next business day, they are debating it in the Senate, which we know it's going to be passed in the Senate. What do you think is the reason for this?
When they have something to hide, that's what they do. You remember when I was a member of the Senate, my perpetual complaint was that I only get this bill this morning, or I get it last night. And I get it at 10 o'clock to get to the House for 11 the next day. And my mate was emailed to me at 10 o'clock. Not that I actually received that. And they complain about it all the time. I didn't get a lot of support from the other senators because, hell, they are appointed by the government, and they can't criticize the government, because if you criticize the government, the prime minister will fire you.
So you're saying that you believe there's something that they're trying to hide while they're rushing. We don't know, but you're thinking that might be the case.
There's something that they want to hide in addition, because they have emptied out the National Insurance Fund for their purposes. Let me show you. The National Insurance Fund is our money. Whoever contributes, that's our money, put down there for our pensions. the government is a trustee of that money.
Yes.
Now, you know that if you are a trustee of money and you spent the money not in accordance to how you're supposed to do it, that would be a criminal offense, and you will face the court. But fortunately, the government make the rules. If I were the trustee for the National Insurance Fund and I did what the government did, I would be in jail now. And they're taking the National Insurance Fund that is not theirs and spend as they like. And what is worse, you have a situation where the National Insurance don't have a say in the, no, we can't give you this money. The minister overrides everything. Even if the board says no, the minister says no, pay the money. So you don't have a choice. The minister decides that the money will come out. No, but you have a situation where you're borrowing money from me. You're going to dictate the terms that you're going to pay me this money. You're going to tell me what interest payments I will get. And then you can also decide, you know something, I ain't paying it back at all. How is that fair? And when you do that, there's no recourse. National Insurance should have some sort of independent body that will tell the government, no, we can't lend the money, no. So all you put all these fancy things in place and you still have the minister responsible, you have just spun top in mud. You are going nowhere because the minister can still override the board, still override all those other committees and decide, yeah, we're going to take out your money. And let me tell you something, see? A lot of people don't know this, but I was on a pension committee stuff years ago when the NUPW nominated me. I discovered back then in 1989 that the actuaries already determined that the National Insurance Fund will go bust by 2035 if nothing happens, if they don't make some corrective measures.
What year was that?
1989. Right? So when Owen Arthur took government in 94, he decided that he's going to do what the last administration didn't do. And he's going to fix that. But he went about it with gusto. He lowered the amount of money that you will get from your pension. He reduced he changed the formula so when you apply, you will get less pension than the fellow would have gotten under the old formula.
Right.
He increased the contributions, and then he increased the maximum level of contributions, what they call the maximum insurable earnings. And that was supposed to put the National Insurance Fund in good footing, and it was. But when these governments see the money going in, and it looks good, they start taking it out. So Owen Arthur fixed it, and then a whole set of people come in and decide that they're going to give it to their friends, lend it out this way, and then this last administration, this current administration came in, and on their first acts of treachery to the people of this country, they took up the money that they borrowed for national insurance to write it off.
Wow.
Over $1 billion. But what is worse, national insurance, if you fail to pay national insurance money that you collect or ought to have collected, it is a criminal offense in Barbados. And you can see the inside of a jail for it. But national insurance don't ever do that. They go the civil matters and they file unpaid certificates against you, which is like a judgment in the High Court. So you have the judgments in the High Court for hundreds of people, and National Insurance refuses to publish their names because some of the most prominent people in this society, some people's fathers and all, would be at the top of the list. So they're not publishing these names.
So they don't want to publish the names because of who these people are.
These people are, and they're all millions. I remember when
I want the people to see this is why we're saying your government is keeping you in the dark, guys. They're keeping you in the dark, and there's a reason for that. Continue, Mr.
A few years ago, I went to the registration department and I sat down behind those big books, taxes and national insurance book, and I totaled up the principal owed, not the principal or interest, just the principal. And when they got to $2 billion, they get tired, and I gave up the ghost. But it's well in excess of $2 billion and then the government turned around and wrote it off. You remember when the government wrote off all of these things?
Yeah.
They wrote it off. This is money that people, and I think it's VAT, NIS, money that you collected from people. And then the government says, okay, for you to keep it.
They decide to keep it. And you know, this is why we say Barbados wake up, because even from the time that happened, there should have been noise in this country, because we put them there, the people put them there, and they went ahead, wrote it off, and now come with all of these different things that they're trying to do, and do it quickly. That's it. That's the thing about it. I have Miss McCLEAN that's who's going to come on. Is there? I know you have a lot more. We're going to give you some more time, but tell us another area of the new bill that is concerning you.
Well, I want to tell you about the other bill, if you don't mind.
Yes.
The pension bill, because this is the biggest scandal in this country now, and people don't realize it. In 1989, the pension age for parliamentarians was 55.
Mm-hmm.
Those people lowered it, and then lowered it for themselves to 50.
Yeah.
And then took the civil service thing up to 67. While they were taking theirs down, they were carrying the biases up. Right? So right now, an MP will get a pension 18 years before a non-MP.
What you telling me? What you telling me? Explain that one to me. I don't understand, because I don't think, I'm a lay person. Explain what you just said to me there, because that doesn't make sense what you just said. You're telling me that go ahead.
Members of Parliament qualify for a pension under the legislation at age 50. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And these same people who get their pensions at 50 turn around Friday, a couple of days ago, and decided that everybody else should get their pension at 68.
Okay, the 18 years, 50 and 68, 18 years. And what are Barbadians saying about, guys? Let me hear your thoughts about that in the chat there. I remember in Jamaica, you remember they gave themselves over 100% increase. The government there, and I up to the Prime Minister to give back his. So we want to know what is Barbados going to do? That was Jamaica. Let's hear about Barbados. What you want to tell me? 18 years? 50
years. but also I can jump between legislation, because they qualify in 8 years for half their salary as their pension. You have to serve 8 years, 2 terms or 8 years, whichever is the greater. And you get half of your salary. Currently, a civil servant, before these new changes come in, currently, right now, a civil servant has to serve 10 years to qualify for 1/5 of his salary, while they're serving 8 to get half.
Oh Lord, no, you're giving me pure jokes today, man.
It gets worse. It gets worse, Marcia. You hear people talk about, I serve my 33 and a third. That is that's big. The maximum pension as a public officer, 33 and a third years. MPs get their full pension at 12 years.
No, hold a minute. What is this? What is going on here, people? Barbados, Bajans. No man, Bajans. No man, Bajans. Listen, it's no wonder they're doing this all the time, and people were doing people walking up and drinking and all kinds of things to the people totally distracted, because Bajans can't let this pass. This
no, they give you you jump up and think and you forget all about it.
You jump up and forget it. You walk up and it gone out your head.
Rex Nettleford.
Yes.
He said, he's a Jamaican professor at the University of West Indies. He said when the slave ships came over the Atlantic, the first port of call was Barbados. And the planters here took off the most docile slaves. And as they went up the islands, the people got the most docile, but they get to them. And eventually, when they get to Jamaica and Haiti, they had only the rebels left. So to this day, Barbados will still make good slaves. We were bred from good slaves.
No, but I used to believe that, Mr. Caswell, Franklin, and after a couple of years living here, I've changed that. I see that when they begin to understand, Barbadians are people who they use their brain a lot. As Jamaicans, we jump off at everything, but they sit down and they think. And this is why we're going through using this method to go through the show. You've had your notes, and you were a senator. It's not just anybody off the street is speaking. You were a senator, an independent senator. We have Miss McCLEAN, who was a senator as well here in Barbados. So we have people who are going to sit down and educate you. And if after we have educated you, I can't see Barbadians sitting down and letting this happen. That's not, I really don't think Barbadians are passive. I think a lot of times is that once they understand it, they're going to move. That's what I think. That's really what I think. And I want to believe that.
Look, the last time we had any rebellion in Barbados, a guy from Trinidad came here and started it, Clement Payne. Before then, Bassa and African. We have not had a Barbadian who stood up and represented our people. Everybody in Barbados is scared about everything else. Check it out. Nobody, unless we get somebody from outside the government, this government will do it, and they know that.
Well, I'm not going to believe that. I believe that I'm really, really washing my mind of that thought that Barbadians are passive. I don't really believe that. I believe that once education happens and once Barbadians understand, it is my belief, Mr. Franklin, that they're going to stand up. Jamaica just stood up to their MPs, and I believe, come on, Barbados, I know it's going to happen here. Please don't go, because I want to, people are going to ask a lot of questions. I want to bring in Miss McCLEAN at this moment. And I also I see coming in is Winston Clark. I see Lynette Eastman on the on as well. And I'm going to put the link. Lynette, check your WhatsApp message, Lynette Eastman. And I would love for you to come on at some point as well. All right. So I would love for you to come on. But let me just welcome Miss McCLEAN, former senator. I can't remember the years that she served as Minister of Foreign Affairs as well. Yes? What were the years? Unmute, please, Miss McCLEAN. Let me see if I can help you.
I got it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I was saying to you, well, good evening, and good evening to my brother in cooperation, Caswell.
Hi, Maxine. Long time no see.
Long time no see, but I hear you. And thank you for having me. I was listening to the discussion, but the more I listen, but I am a pensioner, let me say, but we can revisit that. But and it was 10 years and 4 months it was, Caswell, that I would have qualified for a pension. But anyhow, we can discuss that issue, and I think it is something that will be discussed. But Marcia, when you spoke to me, I really got concerned about the process, because I think Caswell was dealing a lot with the content. And as you were speaking, and as he was speaking, I was looking at the ministerial statement on revitalization of the national insurance scheme. And so I want to say something about process, and Caswell can probably help people to understand if they don't follow. On Friday, we had a debate on two pieces of legislation, the national insurance amendment, as well as the pensions amendment. Both of them relate to pensions, but the interesting thing about it, as I delved into this, because the truth is I was not at home most of Friday to follow the debate. And by the time I got home, the thing had finished. So I'm not sure how long the process took to debate these. I want to emphasize in relation to process that when I started to listen back to the parliamentary recording of this, the Parliament's recording of it, I heard Minister Strawn say that in doing the two bills, they were going to engage in what is called a cognate debate, which is really a single debate. And oftentimes what happens is almost there's a condensation or a reduction in the contribution of the persons because they consider them to be similar and they're not given the same kind of treatment as if they were debated separately. And that's the first thing. So in essence, that kind of would have shortened the debate Friday afternoon just before two bank holidays and so on. The second thing was that after agreeing to do this, I went and I pulled up the two pieces of legislation and went through them and compared them with what I heard. Caswell was talking about the changes, because if you read the legislation, the first one I'm going to touch on both, but if you read the legislation, the one relating to national insurance, that largely addressed the administrative restructuring of the scheme. I think they're dropping the word scheme and using service. I don't see any reference to any of that in the ministerial statement. So I don't know if the minister spoke beyond that to that separately, but all I was hearing today on the radio, for example, and Caswell can confirm this because I believe he was on the program. I heard him when I joined. I think I heard his voice and so on. Speaking to it, they were talking about the changes in benefits and contributions and qualification years and so on. So in essence, a lot of what was in the bill was not even discussed. So I really, in relation to the first one, and then you had the second one, and I don't get the sense that there was significant discussion about that. And that concerns me because in the statement, the minister talks about consultation widely, etc. And my question is, consultation before the bill is put out there and nobody has a chance to read it? Because the other thing I want to point out in terms of process, if you look at the standing orders of the House of Assembly, it says, and I quote, and if this is not a current edition, is what I found online, it says, no bill shall be read a second time until it has been printed and circulated to members and has been published in the official gazette. Now, the official gazette is available online. There's a site controlled by the government printing department, and I checked around 4:45. I made a note at the time, and I went back a second time. And when I checked this evening, there was no the legislation relating to the national insurance was not there. So the first question I have to ask is, was proper parliamentary procedure followed?
So hold a minute there. Hold a minute there. So you're saying that it was read in Parliament on Friday, but there was no, and it is going to be debated on Wednesday in the Senate, and there was nothing put in the official
gazette. Right. And that's a requirement according to the standing orders from what I read for the House of Assembly.
Okay, so you are looking, Ms. McCLEAN is here and she's looking at procedures, and I'm stopping you and because I'm a lay person. I've never been in the Senate. You've been in the Senate, and Mr. FRANKLYN has been in the Senate, and you're saying that the proper protocol was not followed. So that's important. People are taking notes. They say, wait, they tell me, Marcy, I'm taking notes. So that's something to take. Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, but so that's why I'm saying that when my understanding, and I went to the standing orders of the House that are on online, what I was able to see online, and that's why I said unless they have changed, there's a requirement that it be published in the official gazette, and publication would include online publication, and it wasn't there. My question to to Mr. FRANKLYN, to Caswell, is what are the, or to anybody for that matter, what are the implications of proceeding in this manner? When you are seeking to pass legislation, what's the status of it if you have not followed procedure? So that's one thing. The other thing, of course, is when you then put the two pieces of legislation together, the other one being the pensions amendment. I am not sure that what exactly would have been dealt with that, because again, what I heard from Minister Strawn, I think he would have been leading on that. He his focus, well, he did make the point that there was a cognate debate, and there wasn't a lengthy from what I can see, discourse on what the implications of that. And even if there were, the piece of legislation, I think, is something that needs significant consultation with the public service. And my question to CASWELL as a trade union is, what has been the situation in relation to that legislation?
Mr. Franklin, have you heard what Ms. McCLEAN was? Yeah,
I have muted. Sorry, I can answer that by telling you the major trade unions in Barbados are now all controlled by the Barbados Labour Party, so they don't matter to them. Trust me when I tell you so. You have let every Barbados Labour Party function that you have public function. You see the president of the NUPW up front, sitting up there at anything. And of course, Tony Moore, General Secretary of BWU, is an MP, BLP MP. What do you expect? They don't consult with me until it's too late, because recently we were going to take action at the airport, and somebody leaked that we were taking action, and then they got a call the same evening asking for an urgent meeting. And we had a meeting the same day they were having the funeral for Sir Lloyd. Because the rush, because we're going to have the demonstration the Monday morning, so they want to make sure we don't have that. So that's when I started getting consultations over the airport issues. I might have to start taking action over these. But servants are different, a strange type of people. They don't stand up for each other, they don't stand for themselves.
Yeah.
So I think, Marcia,
yes, go ahead.
I was saying that I think my concern with these two pieces of legislation, let me repeat again, in relation to the national insurance, that the bulk of the bill, because let me see if I can see it on my system and read it here for you. I had it. One of the things that it said, basically, it covered, it says here the bill would, and this is amend the law related to the system of national insurance and social security by establishing a body corporate to administer the system and perform the functions relating to national insurance and social security hitherto administered and performed by the Department of National Insurance, and provide for related matters. Now, the big explanation there in the bill is the whole process of reorganizing structurally the thing in terms of how it is managed, and CASWELL went through those things in detail. And then you have a forwards which says provide for related matters. Now, in looking at this and going through the amendments, the related matters are substantial, and I think they're touched on in the ministerial statement. But the other part of it, the bill would have passed in Parliament to go forward, but I don't see evidence. I mean, and somebody can correct me. I don't know if the entire debate is covered. I was trying to pull it up. I didn't have a lot of time in terms of when we had a conversation about my agreeing to be part of the show. The bulk of the thing wasn't discussed in Parliament in any substantive way. And that is critical, because I think CASWELL pointed out hiring practices, for example. Yes, for a long time, there was this kind of anomaly where the board operated as a board in some respects, but these persons were hired and probably remunerated as like the public service. But if you're making a significant change, which will have implications for not only the day-to-day running, but all aspects of the operation, shouldn't that be something shared with the public in a way that, one, they can get a significant amount of debate and discussion in Parliament? And before you get to Parliament, should people not be able to scrutinize the bill? Is wanting to say you consulted, but my assumption is you didn't consult, and they will have to correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't consult on a draft bill. They consulted about an issue or set of issues.
I see.
And then they put together a bill. Now, if I am wrong, somebody can come quickly and say to us, she is wrong. But if you're consulting to inform the bill, when you get to the draft of the bill and you have it there, should you then present that for further scrutiny to see if the discussions that the contributions that you had, if those things fit into the bill?
Would that be the reason why they would have the official gazette, that people are able to see what is there? But in this instance, Barbados, up until 4:45 this evening, Ms. McCLEAN is saying she checked and it was not there. If anybody has any other information, please, 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 because we want to speak truth, you forward that to us. But up until this evening, the bill that is going to be be presented and debated in the Senate on Wednesday was not yet put in the official gazette.
And what I was able to do, sorry, Marcia, because I like to be complete. What I was able to do, because I understand, and CASWELL did make the point that and I heard him on multiple occasions complain that he would have only gotten sight of a piece of legislation probably after entering the Senate or just before going into the Senate. Now, because I know something about the Parliament's website, I went there, and Parliament's website is not the official gazette. You understand? It is not the official gazette. It was there. I would have to go now and go back and see when that was posted there, but I'm sure it would have been posted there so that the members of Parliament could also have access to it. But
right. But remember, all the members of Parliament are all of the same party, so you won't have a robust debate because
the other thing
is the same party.
That is true, because I suggest you go and have a look at the seats, the vacant seats in Parliament when Mr. Strong was speaking. And I think his speech would have been about 45 minutes or so.
45 minutes. You're saying that you didn't even have the full complement of the 30 of them there to debate.
You might have had a quorum, because you have to have a quorum to continue the sitting. But I am saying that for an issue as important as this, when I started to listen to him, and you can go and check the numbers, there were many persons missing. So it is almost as though it was not an important, or not it. There were two pieces of legislation. Those pieces of legislation weren't important. And I'm saying, yes, and it is so much more critical for the public to hear the voices of the members of Parliament in the absence of the voices of an opposition in the Parliament itself. And for something which is going to touch the lives of all working people in Barbados, because if you're a public servant, the bill relating to that is important. Before I forget, Marcy, I want to ask a question of Mr. Franklyn. CASWELL, can you help me understand the issue when a public officer, because it talks about a public officer joining with the contribution to pension applying to public officers who joined the service from January, I think it's January 1st, 2024. The question I want to know is, in the case of, in the civil service, let me put it this way, in the civil service, you have persons who are appointed, you have persons who are temporary and maybe temporary for many years. And now you have a new feature which is running across a wider and wider spectrum of the public service people on contract. If a person is, when I'm trying to understand the pension arrangements as it applies to a appointed versus temporary person, is there a difference? That's the essential thing I'm trying to understand.
There was once, then we have to change that in 1998, because if you were temporary or not, you got your pension under the same legislation and the same terms and conditions. This new amendment will see people coming in after the 1st of January. If you are not appointed, you will not get your pension. So what when after rolled back in 1998, these have no reinstituted, because the legislation speaks to if you are appointed to a substantive post. This amendment here, so if you, in the old days, if you were working in public service, many times I know you had the people on their deathbed, you had to go and get them to sign something quick, or get an emergency thing to appoint them so that they can get the pension, because people have forgotten them. We're going to have to change all of that.
So let me see if I can confirm. Let me see if I understand exactly. So if I started my work life as a clerical officer in the welfare department, child care board, if I were in that situation of working for the last 6 or 7 years in a temporary position, come January, and I'm okay, January 2024, I am still temporary. what applies to me in relation to this 5% contribution?
I will argue because the Pension Act says when you enter the service, it doesn't say appointed.
Okay, when you enter.
Even though they interpret it as being appointed.
Okay.
Because if you have pensionable service and then you are not pensionable, it does not make sense. But then civil servants do what they feel like. This new legislation, however, that says you must be appointed. So if you're not appointed, you're not going to get any pension. And I am glad you talk about the arrangements with contract people and stuff. That is another scandal. People on contract are not entitled to pension, and they get 20% of their gross as a gratuity in lieu of pension. If you sit down next to a guy in the department, he's on contract and you are not, he carries home at the end of the year 20% more money than you. That 20% was supposed to be put down in the savings for you, but no administration has ever done so. Now they're saying that the IMF audited the government pension fund. That is an absolute lie. There's no scheme. There's no pension scheme. You're paid from current revenues. So when they are selling it to the country and saying, that the IMF audited this pension scheme, the government pension scheme, that is a lie. I challenge anybody to show me a document that sets out the government pension scheme. There is none. But they audited something that was not there. They lied to the country and giving them the impression that that we went through an audit and the audit make us do these things. It is not true. But of course we believe anything that they say when they say in Parliament, because parliamentarians, especially this group, don't lie.
So the question I have, Marcia, coming out of this, because I think we focus a lot on, and for example, the information I see moving around, some people spoke about the NIS, and those are important issues. But as I say, both relate to pensions, and it covers all workers in Barbados across the private and public sector. The question, therefore, is that we have to ask the government, can you say to Barbadians, and more especially to public servants, what will be the situation facing employees in the public sector? Because, and I'm going to touch on something and complicate it a little more in a second, because if you have three categories of workers in the what we call the civil service, the direct public, the ministries, etc. You have persons who have been appointed to positions. You have persons who have been appointed, well, more than three categories, but these are some of these situations. You have persons who have been appointed and acting in higher positions. You have persons who are just temporary and have never been quote unquote appointed. And then you have persons now in different levels on contract. Now, I will complicate it a little further. What will be the situation of statutory corporations and companies owned by government that are, so in essence, one of the, what really, when I started to look at this and think about it, it said to me, this is not a simple one-size-fits-all situation, or it's going to apply across the board and easy to understand. So the question I have, because I have to confess that I was not able to go and look to see who else other than the ministerial statement and what Minister Strong said, who else spoke on this. And I wasn't listening to the debate. I wasn't home much on Friday to listen to the debate anyhow. But the question is, has any of this been touched and explained to the public by the minister, by the other members of parliament? Have they actually, can they show us somewhere that we can go and understand? And I raise this because we get these things happening, then you have to pause, you have to stick a pin, you have to pull back and try to redo and to re-examine and re-explain and whatever, because
we're rushing.
The same thing applies to the whole notion of contracts. Up to now, I can't find something which helps me to understand the implications of the issuing of contracts in the public service and how it impacts on different levels, different types of contracts, and so on. All I'm suggesting is that these things touch on some very complex issues, what I would describe as a very tepid debate, if you can call it that, on Friday does not cut it. And saying that you consulted widely almost as insult to injury, because if people took the time to share with you, how is that reflected in the debate that took place?
I'll tell you something though, you just hit on something. The statutory boards are also covered in this legislation. This was a Pensions Miscellaneous Provisions Act. So at one time it amended the Pensions Act for public servants, it amended the Statutory Board Pensions Act, it amended the Teachers Pensions Act, it amended all of them at one time. So everybody's going to be hit with the same thing. But what happens here? Civil servants since 1st September 1975, once they are once they reach age 6, by the pension age, because they're changing now, when they reach the national insurance pension age, their pension from the Treasury is reduced by the amount of money that you get from national insurance. Now you are asking civil servants now to pay for a pension that the national insurance age and the government retirement age is going to be the same thing, so you don't get a pension. You're not going to get any pension. You will get a gratuity, but you will not get any pension going forward. Because
can you repeat that? Repeat that. I think that is important. Someone actually sent something like that to me, but I was trying to understand it. Just repeat that so that the average person can understand it, Mr. Franklin.
Since 1975, if you join the public service after the 1st of September 1975, the pension you get from the government service, from the Treasury, is reduced by the amount of pension you get from national insurance. Well, the national insurance pension is usually higher for people who earn below the maximum insurable earnings. So that means the majority civil service. So when the reduction is applied, when you get the national insurance, it wipes out the pension from the Treasury. So if the retirement age in the government is the same as the retirement age at national insurance, and the pension age at national insurance, all will happen together. So you will get no pension. You will pay for it, but you will not get any.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You don't understand how deceitful and dangerous these people are. And the thing is, Belgians gave them 30 seats. So I believe that Belgians wanted this behavior, wanted to be treated this way. And they gave them twice. So right now, I don't know. Well, I was complaining all along, so I can't really put me in there with them. But
yes,
they are tricking you. They are deceiving you. You will get no pension. The pension will be reduced as soon as you qualify for it.
Marcia, I think that we need to explore this a little bit more, because CASWELL is explaining what a lot of people don't understand. No, you mentioned the gratuity. Let's look at what currently obtains in the public sector, because I think this is the government is the single largest employer in the country, and therefore the impact of this will have a significant impact on the largest group of workers, and single group of workers, if you want so describe them. Right now, a civil servant does not contribute. They pay national insurance, right? And I'm just trying to walk through how the pension is calculated and who finances it. You pay national insurance, and then government pays you. Because I know most civil servants, you will hear them say, I'm going to take a gratuity and a smaller pension. The gratuity is not paid by national insurance, is it? How does it work? Explain that.
The gratuity is actually, what happens? Mm-hmm. They calculate what your pension would be. Mm-hmm. When they work that out, they take 1/4 of that amount, what your annual pension would be, and multiply it by 12.5. The reason for that, we're back in 1947 when this thing was started, that people used to live 12 and a half years after retirement. 55 used to be the retirement age. So by 67, you'd have gone.
I lost, I would be dead.
So what they did, they take out 1/4 of your pension. And they multiply by 12.5, and they give you that as your gratuity. Okay. That will help fix the house, change the roof and stuff, so they will live in comfort until you're dying there. The remaining 3/4, they divide that in 12 and give you that monthly. Right. However, if you come into the service after the 1st of September 1975, when the national insurance kicks in, that pension now will cease, and you will only get for national insurance if you are one of the people who work right now. The current number is 5,000. If you work for less than $5,120 a month, that's almost everyone in public service. So the vast majority of the public servants will not get a pension from the Treasury, even though when you pay for it. You see, and the thing is, what people didn't understand, that your salary in the public service was always supposed less than what you should have gotten for your qualifications and stuff, and that amount was supposed to be saved for you as a deferred earnings pension. So when people say that the civil servants didn't contribute to their pension, they contribute because they were being paid less than they should have been paid.
Okay, gotcha.
And now they're saying, "Oh, you don't pay." So that's, as a matter of fact, to show you what I mean. If you are a public officer and somebody wants to stick on you to their business, that person has to pay the Treasury 25% of your salary to maintain your pension. Right? So they got to pay 25%. So that 25% should have been put down there for you all along. It was never put down for you because government, don't always have the money.
Cash flow, yeah.
So they so rather than put it down, they just went ahead and just left it and paid from current revenue. So to say that civil servants didn't contribute to their pension, they contributed because they were paid less.
I see.
You see, they were paid less, and then that money was supposed to be saved for them. And government honored it until these people come around the place now and say, "Well, look, we're going to treat people." But anyhow, they cared.
But you know what, this just what I mean. I'm watching the chat, and this, as someone is saying, this has to be done again because people are just like myself. I have to be honest, it's not a topic that I know very much about, and I'm learning so much tonight, and I'm saying this is why we needed to have that public discussion and understanding. People understand what this is all about, because it affects us all. Everybody, it affects us all. Let me just bring Mr. Clark in because we're going to get into having people to come on and to share their views and ask questions, etc. Before I open the floor to you guys again, you are the professionals here. You are two senators, and we'll be able to give us some, clear understanding of this issue. But Mr. Clark, he's a paralegal and also represents the people, and I know he has something that he wants to say on that. Welcome, Winston. Good to have you.
Good night.
Yes.
Good night. Thank you for
Hi.
having me. Hi, good night.
Everything.
All right. I will not even try to reiterate what Mr. Franklin and Mrs. McCLEAN spoke about. What I will speak about, though, is the surreptitious way the government went about implementing this bill. All right. And they spoke about consultation. But whom did they consult with? They continue to speak about transparency. Where was the transparency? Because I never heard about any consultation. All right. And I am always online with the Gazette. As a matter of fact, you and I spoke about this earlier this evening, and I went online, and there is nothing about that bill in the Gazette relative to the pensions, etc. No, to just have the sitting on Friday, which is not the norm, because they usually sit on Tuesday, and I believe CASWELL said this, and Senate is usually on Wednesday. Then to have this crop over festivities, and then the Senate sit on Wednesday, to obviously, and as Ms. McCLEAN said, have a tepid debate, because we know it's already a foregone conclusion. They're going to pass it. There's no opposition, so to speak. You understand? But the thing about it is, I am so upset about it, because a lot of people are not going to live to see a pension. I'm going to be realistic. They are not going to live to ever receive a pension. So all those years will go for naught. And it is time that Barbadians, and I know I've been getting this consistently on my chats, it is time that Barbadians stand up. France stood up when Macron did this, and everything stood to stand still. It's time that Barbadians come out, even if they do not, they say, well, listen, let's for one day and show this government that we have a say and that they work for us and it's not the other way around. All right, because nobody, 68 years. As far as the NIS scheme, etc., I leave that in the hands of CASWELL and Miss McCLEAN, right? Because I'm aware that there wasn't much change, so to speak. All right, I haven't had a chance to completely read the bill, but I've just seen a skim of it. Okay, but as far as the pension is what we are really worried about. If you look at the comments and you listen to the people, you listen to the chats,
Yes.
you will see that people are
That's
really worried.
That's where they're mostly concerned about that, and you know, it's you know, it's very it's to me it is. I just can't even find the word to say that you want to be transparent and talking about you know, you want to make sure that you have, you know, people having a say, etc. And you're going to come read a bill on Friday, and then you're going to take it to the Senate to debate on Wednesday. It's not in, you know, in the public sphere for people to look at it. We have a holiday. We can't discuss it on brass tacks. We can't do anything because you gave us a holiday. You plan out this whole thing. It seems like it appears as though this is planned out. We must wind up and we must walk up and we must drink and then get up Wednesday and we don't even realize what happened. You know, this is what it's coming over to me. But thank you so much for your comments, Winston. Just hang on there in the green room. Let me see, Mr. Jamal Forsyth is coming in because this is the point where we're asking people to come in and have your say. Come in and have a say. Okay, we can't keep you for too long. Okay, we're not going to keep you for too long, but you're going to come in and have your say, go right out so somebody else can come in. Okay.
1 second, Dominic. I think
so
now someone asked me.
Mr. Forsyth.
Yes, ma'am. Someone asked me what would be the rude awakening. The rude awakening would be for the Barbadian public to stand up to these charlatans, because this is blatant madness. Now, what Mr. Franklin was saying earlier is quite true, because when you qualify for the pension age, apparently it disappears. Because my father had worked in the Bridgestone port, and upon retirement, he took a very long time to even receive or even hear anything about pension or anything like that. So what he's saying is quite true. It is not lies. People need to stand up to this madness and stop this foolishness. They are living under pretense, and it's a false hope saying, oh, this person is auntie and uncle. No. How is it legal for someone to tell you, or government therefore then, to tell you that it is illegal not to pay NIS, but at the same said time, it is legal for them to take the money from you? That's not that is lunacy. That is lunacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and no one is standing up to this madness. No one is any monsters. I'm not saying that you should run board the government and burn it down. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if the people stand up to these to the leaders and tell them, listen, we've had enough. We are the ones that put you here. You understand? These things will come to a cease. It will bring cessation. It will have to cease. Because there is no way that these things can continuously go on for years and years. And look at the time that they did it. The last time they brought in legislation, they brought it and they snuck it in. And now they're sneaking in a new legislation in right at the time of crop over. When people are dancing and wearing costumes.
They were debating two important bills all in one. And then days later, now they want to pass it in the Senate. And those are the things that I believe that we need to, I agree with you. We have got to let them know we're not accepting it.
and it has not been made public notice. It is not in the National Gazette. It is not there for the wide public to see. Why is it being hidden?
Why is it
You
being
know,
hidden? That is the
why is
thing.
it
That
being
is the
hidden? The
thing.
people are not wondering what are the implications for the future. They are not securing the future for the younger generation. It is madness.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Forsyth. Lots of
No
foresight.
problem.
Thank you so much. And the link is there. I'm going to put the link in again.
Okay.
Thank you, Jamal. I'm going to put the link in and ask you guys to come in. Let your voice be heard. You don't even have to put on your camera. Okay?
Marcia.
The link is going to say StreamYard. Go ahead, Mr. Franklin. And there's a question Cheryl Blackman has there. Go ahead,
Okay.
Mr. Franklin.
Benson spoke about consultation. That is not consultations. I can confess that they invited me. Well, I don't know if you call it invitation. I got a letter from the Permanent Secretary Ministry of Labor saying, thanks for agreeing to serve on this committee. You know, but that was the first time I knew that I agreed. You know, when I saw that letter, I realized, hell, Caswell, you agreed to something. I was probably sleepwalking. So I took offense to it. So, of course, when they invited me to meet, I didn't turn up because you just can't assume that you're going to thank me for, and they're going to just rush in there. But then the director of National Insurance called me and said, I missed 2 meetings. And I said, well, okay, can you give me the documents? I will still come, but give me the documents so that I can review them before I can. No, they can't give me the documents. I will get them when I get there. So you are going to ask me to come to a meeting to consult about something and don't let me know what it is. That's what the consultation. So the other trade union leaders rushing and when they do that. I have more respect for myself than that. I didn't go because you refused to give me any documentation till I get there when everybody had them already. Rawdon had them, everybody had them, but not me.
Mm-hmm. And as Ms. McCLEAN said, you might have consulted, you met before, because on their website they said they spoke with different types of people in society, etc. The point is, when you have the draft bill, that draft bill now you need to take it back to those people and to and it needs, you need to follow procedure. Be conscious of the fact that there's no opposition in this country and make sure that the public has some kind of say in what happens. I think that is important. But there's a question here. I'm going to be 67 next year.
Cheryl will get her pension.
Cheryl is going to have her pension.
She will get her pension. Sorry, go ahead, Caswell.
She will get her pension actually if she qualifies. That means that if she has been in public service for 10 years or more, temporary or appointed, doesn't really matter right now. And she's reached 67, yeah, she will get her pension. If she's talking about the national insurance thing, if she has the 500 contributions, yes, she will get her pension. The problem there with this thing is that the new people now we're going to have 750 contributions, 14.4 years. They call it 50, it's 14.4 years. So you're now qualifying, you're not asking these people to qualify in 14 years when the same MPs are qualifying in 8. They can't sit down and do that and hold a straight face. No, they're saying we're in this together. That may not be nobody here.
Marcia, could I, so that other people understand, I went to the minister's speech, and I think I will share this so that people, based on what on the 5th page of the speech, he said, the pensionable age is now 67, making the current difference between average years lived and retirement age 11 years. The measure therefore recommended here is a 1-year rise of the pensionable age in 2 steps. In 2028, the pensionable age will become 67.5 years. In 2034, the pensionable age becomes 68 years. But I heard him, the question was posed, and I would say it would only be fair that if we adjust this, that they relook the pensions going forward for MPs as well. I mean, if adjustments are made. If when there increases the pension or whatever that is the case, and they get it, then you need to look and see how this, you have to adjust it, taking everybody into consideration. That's my position on that.
Mhm. So, is it that they're planning to do that, Mr. Franklin? Are they planning to adjust it for the MPs, and it's not yet
Um,
ready?
I heard Minister Colin Jordan today on Brass Talk saying, "Oh, that the Prime Minister said something to that effect." You know, they're not planning anything yet. They were they were thinking about it. You know,
So hold a minute. So they didn't so this in this bill that they're putting, there's nothing in there for the parliamentarians. That's the
no, the
MPs.
parliamentarians have a different piece of legislation.
Ah,
Return along this legislative service act.
I see. So
That's in the
they're
state.
saying they're thinking about it. So this is where Bajans come in. Bajans, you need to let it be more than they're thinking about it. That this is something that they have to do. This is where Barbadians have to rise up and say, listen, you're not just going to think about it. Okay, this is something that has to happen. I agree with Miss McCLEAN that, and it's right here what you were saying right there on the screen, that they would need to look at that as well. Guys, can you see if you see the link there, those that are watching, thank you for everybody who's watching. We have almost 500 persons on tonight watching. I'm going to ask you, come guys, you don't have to show your face. All right, you don't have to put on your camera, but this is an opportunity. Let your voice be heard. I don't believe that Bajans are passive. I refuse to believe that. I refuse to believe that. You're a people of action, and something you got to do something. Let's talk about it. You have a question to ask the question, make sure you understand it, so that when you're ready to take your actions, you know what you're doing. In the meantime, go ahead, Mr. Franklin. It seems like you want to say something.
Yes, it is not on the pensions or the national insurance. And I just want to show you how the government is behaving. You realize the airport, they have this PPP thing going on, right? And they're saying, oh, that they're now discussing this PPP, to have this PPP. They signed it recently, and they will work out the details of a contract. I do not believe that for a minute. I can tell you why. The Arabs already have their man working in Barbados at the airport. He's Patrick Voyer, the operations, the director of operations. They brought him in and stuck him in the Vega Post at the airport. No advertising, no nothing. He was working, if you look at the website, he was in Abu Dhabi and wherever else working. They brought him here to oversee what the transition. I know the government is working backwards to put contracts and things in place. They already got their man employed. They already got their man working here already. And
You
you
like to give me jokes, man. You're giving me pure jokes.
I just it's PIETRICK VOYER, Patrick Voyer. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but he is now the number 2 man in the hierarchy at the airport. He's the man that will take over when they get rid of De Bourne when he's no longer useful. He's the CEO. But that is what these people are doing. They're doing things behind the scenes, coming up with all this, and then present it to you. And now with this thing, if my members at the airport didn't decide that they were going to take industrial action, we would not have found out. But this PPP signing up, and this PPP was an afterthought. It was already consummated. And why would you have your man working here and you ain't got no contract yet?
I think though, Marcia.
So when you can start trusting this government, keep on trusting them.
No, I think this whole discussion and I mean what CASWELL just introduced also speaks to employee rights, benefits, and all of these things as well, because at the end of the day, his union members will need to know what is their situation. But it bothers me that there's so much that is happening that the public is sitting and looking on and watching and trying to figure out exactly what is going on. I mean, and we talk about transparency and good governance. We hear it all the time. But at the end of the day, so many decisions are taking place. I mean, I if I go back to this, and I need to reiterate it, that if we didn't have this discussion today, if we didn't talk about this, I would not even have realized from listening to the debate in the Parliament the extracts carried in the news, the discussion on brass tacks today, that the bulk of the national insurance bill has to do with the reorganizing, with management issues, about the legal structure of the organization and all of these things. As I said, I mean, I went back because when I downloaded the ministerial statement, to make sure that I had to go back and check to make sure that I had all the pages. It's a 9-page document. And there is nothing of substance in there talking about that. And what are the implications for, for the workers? Because in this as well, in the legislation, there's reference to the setting up of a private pension for employees in national insurance. I don't know if you spotted that, Caswell, in the
yes, within 2 years of
reorganizing or whatever,
they will have to set up their own pension scheme. The people who go over from the public service will remain under cap 25, which is the public pension for public servants. Unfortunately, I don't trust this government enough. I don't trust them as far as I control the prime minister. And what they have done every time is to put that clause in there, but don't obey it, don't follow it. Bruh, just only recently, after how many years, have to pay these people the pension on the salary that they were making when they retired from BRA, and not the salary they paid the public service all those years ago. You know, they trick people. You know, I don't understand why they would do it. You know, this is a country that they run. This is not their place. They're doing it on our behalf. Because they're going to do it on our behalf, do it well, and treat us well. No, they always feel that they have to deceive us. So I don't trust them when they put those few clauses in there, because at the airport when they had the transition, they said nothing will change to the staff. It changed. Something as simple as the sick leave. You were getting 14 days sick leave if you were temporary, or 21 if you're permanent. They bring all down to 6. And they said, though, the terms and conditions will remain the same. But when the actual transition happened and people went over, you got 6 days, though. And when you missed 3 days, they're right here telling about your son went up your 6 days and all kind of madness. So I don't trust them. What should happen? And I told the minister this today on brass tacks. The problem is that the government is going about fixing things that they don't understand. Like, for instance, I told him there's an American saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The national insurance legislation was not broke, according to the Americans, but they're trying to fix it. And they don't understand what they're doing, because everything that they have put in place is already in place.
Yeah.
Except hiring staff. The board cannot hire staff. Everything else the board can do. Right now, today, the board can do everything that you see in the new legislation. So there's no need for it.
Wow. You know, folks, this is very, very, very a very important time. I want to believe this is a turning point. I'm gonna be very, very honest, and my husband can tell you that it is so. Whenever, you know, this whole weekend we're talking about it, and I said, Dave, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not getting involved. I wasn't born here. Mr. McCLEAN, I'm being honest. I said, not me. I'm not getting involved. Let the Bajans rise up. Let the Bajans rise up. But the more I thought about it, and this is what pushes me, what gets me going, guys, to all of you who are watching. Do you know what gets me going? It's the fact that we live in a country without any formal opposition. And I always say to myself, if we all decide we're not going to get involved, what's going to happen to our beloved Barbados? What's going to happen to it? And that's why I would get involved. That's why I opened my computer and came on. Huh?
If you don't get them, what will happen? They will sell it to the Arabs for $10 million a year.
You know, this is and I believe, I don't know what can happen for Wednesday, but I am saying that we need to send a clear signal on Wednesday. Something has to be sent on Wednesday as some signaling needs to be sent on Wednesday. There are 504 of us on here on tonight. Well, with Caswell and myself, and I see Winston is back in the green room. There will be 508 persons logged on here tonight. And I believe when Wednesday comes, what is going to happen? We're going to fet up the whole time and forget about it. What's going to happen by Wednesday? Are they planning to pass this on Wednesday? Huh?
I can tell you what I would like to see. I would like to see when Wednesday morning breaks that no government office open. I will open the hospital, of course, because you need to have that open. And nothing at hospital and clinics and stuff, but nothing else. But business can do that. If you see that happen, that will happen when my bonds are white.
Listen, Caswell, I am telling you, Miss McCLEAN, I don't, they say only certain set of, a certain type of the enslaved people went to Jamaica, etc. But when you really begin to look at the history, there are Maroons here, There were Maroons in Barbados too. There are Maroons all about that. That spirit is still here. The spirit of the Maroons is still here.
But those Maroons married those side people.
No, man, not my Bajan people. No. I don't believe that. I believe with information, something's going to happen. It can't stay like this, Miss McCLEAN.
Well, my position on this, Marcia, is that I certainly am using this forum to ask the Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister, same person, and her cabinet and parliamentary group to stop and explain properly to Barbadians what is happening. We can decide as well. Citizens can decide. I sitting from where I sit as a member of a political party and form administration. I would prefer not to suggest anything. Caswell is a trade unionist, and I think he's gone down a trade unionist role. But let me explain what I think is critical, because as far as I'm concerned, and I will put on my teacher's hat, that's where I spent the largest time of my working life as a lecturer at university, a teacher, teaching people management. And this is a case of mismanagement of two very critical issues that are related. There's this notion that at the end of the day, the Barbadians, we went across the country. My question is, doing what exactly? Because at the end of the day, if you are consulting with me prior to drafting a piece of legislation, come back to me and say, this is what we are proposing for these reasons. Let us walk you through how it's going to impact you. Because at the end of the day, the legislation that affects public offices. Remember, I made the point that as a category of workers in Barbados, the public sector is the single largest group. My question is, how is this going to impact? And don't let me put it positively, because as you know, that's how I like to speak. Demonstrate it by giving people some practical information on how this is going to work. Because at the end of the day, people need to know what are the implications. We've talked about, there's so much packed into these two pieces of legislation that a debate on Friday. I think I was on the road at 5 o'clock. That's when CBC brings over the 5 o'clock news on evenings. BLB is 5:30. And if I remember correctly, that debate would have been finished by then. Two bills, you understand, of critical import. And that is what it is. So people need to understand, as I said, you're talking about, and let's park the national insurance and look at the pension reform. What exactly is the situation for public workers? The government introduced contracts some time ago, and when I asked questions, public officers could not help me to understand, because the kind of question I was asking is, if and this is let's say at the senior level, and the same thing would apply probably for when you're working out pensions and whatever else. If I am a deputy permanent secretary and I take a contract to work, and Caswell, perhaps you can help me understand this, and I take a contract for 3 years as a permanent secretary, and for whatever reason, and I presume in part of that contract you have a clause which says that they can terminate the contract, or you can terminate it. If that is the case, do I go back to my substantive post? What happens to my salary? What happens to my contributions to pension? You see, the point I'm making is that, like those kind of arrangements, this legislation has some serious implications for different categories of workers. And therefore, rather than rush through a bill, to come back and do what has been the standard practice in the last few years, to make decisions, put them in place, and then say, hey, it ain't working, we got to pull back and wheel and come again. Stop and talk to people, talk them through this so that they understand. Talk the ministers and MPs through it so that they understand. Because I am not hearing in most of the debates that they understand the issues. So if they can talk us through those issues, then, but to pass this and to have so many questions, and I am sure that once it is passed and they try to put it in place, there will be some issues. So
Yeah.
Go back. You went and you
Go
asked
back.
questions. Go back and help answer some questions. Provide some answers.
I think people need a lot of and people have a lot of questions. I see Winston wants to say something. Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Yeah. I am going to be the most forward as far as this discussion is concerned, because Ms. McCLEAN, I understand how she, as a former politician, the diplomacy she would use, right? As far as this, what we, the public, think should happen. All right? But I'm going to be straightforward, right? You don't need to ask questions. We don't need for them to explain, because they're going to go about and do it anyway. And they're going to do something that is going to be adverse to us, okay, adverse to our children, and adverse to our grandchildren. All right? They have implemented something which is disadvantageous to us. But when you look at their employment standard, it's a total paradox to what they have implemented for us. All right? So unless we, as CASWELL said, and I've been saying this for a long time, do not work for one day and show that we can grind everything to a halt, and if they continue with it until we get what we require, because nobody across the board wants the age of pensions to go to that age. Nobody wants the things that they're implementing. Nobody wants to go about hearing the talk of transparency, yet not actually getting the transparency. They passed a bill when CASWELL was not in Senate, him and about 2 or 3 other senators. They eased and did that. No, they're doing the same thing and using the festivities as a kind of I don't know, as a diversion, so to speak, so they can implement what they're doing. And if we do not do something about it, they will consistently do it. I do not know what is wrong with Barbadians, no. But it looks as if a spell is being worked on the island. You understand? And we need to get up. And I'm going to ask, I've done it before, I'm going to ask people, and we pick a day to come out and stand up and say, listen, come to us, or we will not be accepting this. We will not accept it. Come to us. I'm not propagating any violence, you understand, or any civil unrest or any of that sort. But the same way that we could have come out and make sure that the vaccines are not mandatory, we can come out and do this. We can do this. We've done it before, and we can do it again.
Do it
all
again.
Right?
I agree with you. I agree with you. And, this is a call to action. As you said, we understand Ms. McCLEAN can't be part of this, but I just want to say that we have, listen, let's start to move forward. That's just how I think. So what would we need? Right. You're the trade unionist, Mr. Franklin. I'm not into anyone. I left my Sunday lay down and rest day. And here, I don't want to be talking. This is not a talk shop. We want to plan. How do we plan this sick out and this one day? Alicia says sick out for real. Start with one day. What can we actually do something on Wednesday? Because they plan to pass it Wednesday, That's the thing about it. What can we do?
You see, the thing is, if you call in sick on Wednesday, they can't do anything because you're allowed to call in sick for 2 days.
So you're saying
That's right.
if you call in sick on Wednesday, they can't do anything. You're speaking to government workers?
I'm speaking to government workers. I'm speaking to any worker in Barbados.
Every
Any
worker.
worker in Barbados.
Because
Private sector.
the Public Service Act allows you to call in 2 days, and the Employment Rights Act allows you to call in 2 days as well. All right, so they don't get a doctor certificate. So that's the easiest thing to do. Will they do it? I have my doubts.
Listen,
what they
we're
want to do-
going to stay positive. Let us stay positive. We
I
are
am
calling.
positive they won't do it.
No. Listen,
I'm
folks, 524 of us here. How many of you will say on here that you will call in sick on Wednesday because of this issue?
I'm going to push
It's enough
it.
to make you really sick, you know. I'll tell you something though, because Maxine asked about the contracts. Only Saturday, yesterday, I see people on Saturdays. You know, I'm poor, so I gotta see people, and they're not fortunate enough like and have weekends off. And a principal came to my office, and that's the question she asked me. The problem here is that government is putting contracts in place for public officers, but they're not explaining to the public officers what are the repercussions. Because let's say you are a senior teacher. Let's go as a senior teacher. And there's a vacancy for principal. You apply, you do the fancy talking and stuff, and you get the job because you did a really good interview, because you can talk pretty. Then you didn't work out. You get a contract for 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, the people say, I'm not renewing this contract. What will you do now? Go back now and become junior to the deputy, the head of departments and principal. Know that you were once, it was going to be embarrassing. This public service is supposed to be a permanent service. The politicians are supposed to be temporary. They get 5-year increments. You get a 5-year increment. And one thing this government is doing is trying to make sure that they get their way and everything. Because if you have a public servant who's on contract, he gets the contract in year 1 of the government service. He gets for 3 years. He is now supposed to advise the government on technical issues. But the government wants something done. But he is saying no in his heart. But when his contract due now another couple of weeks, you think he can tell them no? Now, if he were permanent, he can say, no, that's wrong. And these are my reasons. You can't do that when the same people can tell you, well, I'm not going to renew your contract if you tell me no. So it is not good to have senior public officers on contract because they cannot give the best advice to the politicians. Because most of the politicians don't want good advice and they just want their way. Well, not all politicians, but I mean this group. Right?
Listen,
pension age at 68. My grandmother got her pension at age 68. She was born in 1900. I remember it was $13 or something like that. Commoners lowered that to 65. This group not gonna get back. You realize? That's what happened, you know. It used to be 68 before, and people thought that was too high. It's still too high. I'm not going back there. When I get to 67, I know they complete the circle, but I can't go all the way right back to 68. And I saved this one for the last because I wanted to get you a bit angry. Yes, I'm going to admit I want to make you angry. If you are working as a public officer and you join the service after the 1st of September 1975, and you are getting a pension from the Treasury, when you reach national insurance pension age, your pension from the Treasury is reduced by the amount of money you get from national insurance, except you're an MP.
Can you read that? Read that again. Read that one more time, Mr. Franklin.
I wasn't reading, but I'll tell you again. Persons who join the civil service or public service, they call it now, after the 1st of September 1975, when they qualify for pension from the Treasury, and they have a pension from the Treasury, you're getting your pension from the Treasury. When you then qualify for the national insurance pension, the pension that you're getting from the Treasury is reduced by the amount of money you get from national insurance, except you're a politician. They still get both. They still get both. So they're thinking with everybody pension about themselves. They're getting two, you know. They're getting two. And they're taking away your one. And not only taking away, but giving it longer to get it. They get at 50. You know, people always tell me, Caswell, you should be an MP, you should be a politician. I tell them, I don't want to be a crook.
You know, as a former politician, I was never a crook.
I know that, but I'm not saying that you are. But the people who invited me, doing that same thing, what they could do, I could be.
I think something like this. I think Barbados, I'm saying we. There needs to be some action. There needs to be some action. And I believe that within, it's a short time. We don't have, to do anything on the streets. You're going to need to get permits. And we're in a holiday period. So just stay home. Just stay home. Listen, we will come back on. Miss McCLEAN probably not going to come back on with this band because this. But
when you're finished, I will say something. But you
listen. We need to get back on here tomorrow night. We need to keep this going. Emmanuel is on. Listen, all the bloggers, everybody, because we need to keep this holiday tomorrow hot. All bloggers get on and call for the day on Wednesday. Every blogger, because they're not going to do it on the radio. They're not going to do it on the television. It's only the internet we have. You see the show? Take it and send it all about. Guys, there has to be a call to action. If not, we're only on here talking, right? You were going to say something else, Mr. Franklin, and then Emmanuel.
No, I was just going to say, hi, Emmanuel. How are you doing? Good to see you.
I wanted to say something though, Marcia, because unless Emmanuel was talking, let me pause and let Emmanuel.
Yeah, let Emmanuel, since he came on, and I'm going to put the link again for anybody to come on. Anybody, this is a good time. You don't have to turn on your camera. Let your voice be heard. Go ahead, Emmanuel.
Hi, good night. Can you hear me? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Usually I have guests on my platform, never really a guest on somebody else's. This is interesting. Good night to each and everyone. You too, Mr. Franklin, Miss Ford, and obviously Marcia, Queen. Greetings to you. This has been an interesting conversation. I was listening to it for quite some time, and I think we are on the right track in part. And I say in part only because if you think about it, when did national insurance, when did this really start, Mr. Franklin? Was it in 1966?
The bill was passed in 66. It started in actually 1967.
67. But it was officially...
today, the Ronald Adams said it, I wrote it down. He said that it was managed effectively or something to that effect. And I said, well, if it was being managed, so why you want to fix it? Why you want to change it? He didn't answer. Because he was saying that it was good, He said creditable performance. I wrote it down.
Credible performance
over here, and yet still they want to fix something that was working creditably. They want to change it. I asked, but why? It ain't broke.
Well, if I may, the reason I asked that question is because I think in order to fully grasp what is really going on is to look at it and review. There's an old African saying, if you want to know what's going on in the road up ahead, you answer one returning. But let's look back a little bit. In 1966, what was one of the most significant things that happened in Barbados outside of national insurance? It was independence. Exactly. So, well, what exactly was independence? You see, if we never fully grasp what happened in Barbados in 1966, we can never really appreciate what the national insurance scam, well, whatever it is, we can never really appreciate what it truly represents. And think about it, for example, people who would have bought into this idea in 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, who would have then qualified automatically because of the age they were at and received the pension from those who are now paying into it, recognize that that wouldn't have lasted but so long unless we continue to pay into it. Now, the age limit of people expectancy, life expectancy in Barbados has changed significantly from the days of the plantocracy, which was about 20, 25, 30 years old, if you're lucky, to now they're asking us to be 60, 65, well, in some cases 68. And you juxtapose that with the Bible, who say you're supposed to live until 70. Understand what they're really saying in a different language is that we want to work you to death. The only other circumstances where you work to death was on the plantation. So if we want to do a juxtapose, let's look at it this way, Mr. Franklin and Ms. Ford and Marcy, I'm sure you can understand this.
Ms. McCLEAN.
Miss McClean, Ford, where did that come from? Miss McClean, the reality is that Barbados is still functioning as a plantocracy. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not is irrelevant. And the only way out of it, you have to ask yourself one of two questions. Am I looking for comfortability on the plantation, or am I looking for liberation from the plantation? Because if you don't know which one you're looking for, the idea of staying home, marching, protesting, doing anything, it's going to vary. Because some folks just really want to be comfortable. They don't really want to upset. You know, I don't really want to get into the whole talk about this and that because I got my mortgage, I got my children overseas. I can't afford to upset nobody. And there's others who, you know, might think, you know what, I don't care about nothing. I ain't paying nothing. I ain't paying nothing. But according to the Bible, we should come out of her, my people. And I've said this on many platforms. The reason why there's only this seemingly one option is that because we won't create our own governing body. Rather than keep begging the plantocracy to make us comfortable with our enslavement, why don't we simply come out and create our own governing body, start to support our own, put things in place to take care of our elderly at the age of retirement, at a respectable age, put things in place to take care of our children in the schools and learning environments that doesn't cause them to give up their morality, put things in place to create our own trade, our own currency. We have to go that route if we have to. And let's sustain ourselves. There's plenty of land in Barbados, what they call in Crown land, that we know belong to the people. We don't have to get into the conversation about who own what and what, and asking Mia Motley and her administration to comply with what you're asking. Simply lead them to their own device and simply create our own. And we keep coming back to the same place of asking the plantocracy to make us comfortable with our enslavement. They will never make you but so comfortable. In fact, our citizen yield, a people, anyone, any governing body that desires to keep you from thriving and doing better is looking to enslave you. The reason why they even put this weekend in light of the 2-day holiday and whatnot, it's almost like an insult to the intelligence of Barbadians. And the prime servant said, you know, we're ready to come and walk up. So come and walk up. So what they're telling you is that, in fact, there's a play called Caliban. I don't know if you ever heard it, by Shakespeare. It's called Caliban. Most Barbadians probably never heard of it. I don't know, maybe not. But what was said to Caliban is that the only thing you need to do with Caliban is give him some booze, I guess, and a woman, and he ain't gonna remember nothing, man. And I yield with that. You know, we got to be mindful of the times we're in and recognize what they're really looking to do is re-enslave Barbadians in a whole different way. And unless we are honest about this and work towards liberating ourselves and leave Egypt, we're going to be stuck in Egypt with the Pharaoh working and don't have no say. And yes, I think both of you said it, and I'm certainly Marcy said it. They're going to work you to death. You will not collect no insurance. It will not be passed on to your family. And trust when I tell you, you are going to die not receiving nothing. And I yield with that, Marcia, for the time.
Yeah. I put you in the green room, but hang around, Emmanuel, if you can. Jen Wiggs is saying that all the public workers in the unions need to address their union leaders and let them know to go and let this administration know that they're shutting down the country if they pass the bills. Mr. You are the trade unionist here. I'm going to defer to you, Mr. Franklyn. The NUPW, BWU, I don't know of the other names. You have your union. Is this a good suggestion that the workers who are listening need to go to contact their their unions and let them know what their concerns are and what they would want to do, Mr. Franklin?
Well, that ideally that's what should happen. Okay, but let me explain to you what's been happening with the unions. I remember they had something called the NSRL, which was the most fair tax, the fairest tax that we had in place. But the merchants didn't like it because they had to pay that money up front. With VAT, they like VAT because they can always steal the VAT. But with the NSRL, it was the most equitable tax. They had to pay it up front. And there was no refunding of it. So they can go and claim it back. So they didn't like it. And those people, merchants, usually people of Caucasians, who are the merchant class, got together with the Barbados Labour Party, demonized Friendly Stewart and Sinclair over that tax, and get the unions on board. Mind you, when they call me, let me tell you something. Anybody from my union who joined that march would be walking off their job because my union will not support it. I didn't go, and you should see the thing is, and I have seen. Then this government came in and promised, oh, we're gonna get rid of the NSRL, and did it, and then take the taxes off of the merchants and put it on water. Poorest of the poor start having to pay that tax. You're paying $45 for the poor people who used to pay $32 water bill, and you put $45 on it. That is what this government did. And the people say, I'm not going to vote for them, so they can think of it. But the unions supported the government. All the governments, the unions supported. Just recently here at the airport staff, I think 50 of them resigned from NUPW and get vexed over NUPW's behavior. Mind you, I got 45 of them as a result, but thank God for small mercies. They resigned and left NUPW simply because the government told NUPW only ask for 3% over the first year and 3% second year. The chairman, I understand, but I wasn't there. The staff told me, the chairman said, well, that's a proposal. You fellas can come with something else, and we will see what else we can do. The union said, no, we ain't doing it. The chairman tell you to go and do it. The chairman of the airport said you're going to do X. And the union said, no, we are not doing it. We can stick with the government tell me to stick to. So that's the problem that you have. The unions have been bought. And I'll tell you something. Mayor Molly is not a fool. She knows how to win friends and influence people. And she went about and she influenced the unions. And she has all of her people in place and vital areas. General secretary, presidents, and all kind of people of these unions swear their allegiance to her. So they're not going to call it anybody.
Marcy, I wanna ask some questions because I like to think things through from beginning to end, because you're clearly saying we have some issues as Barbadians and so on with the legislation and all that is proposed. Sick out on Wednesday and then do what? What exactly are you asking of government? And I think these are the things we have to work out, because going and standing in the heat and dehydrating yourself on Wednesday, if you went as one of the options, does not necessarily lead to that. What we're saying to the government, what I'm saying certainly, as somebody who, I tell people I am one of 4-generation family. So I am only thinking about me and my son, but of my oldest brother's grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Because if, the point I'm making is, even if we start from the basis that there may be the need for some kind of pension reform, what is informing that? Because I heard, if I didn't hear all he said, but I think I heard the Minister of Labor talking about an agreement with the IMF. What did they agree with the IMF to do? And what is that going to do in relation to us as Barbadians? What impact will it have on us, negative and otherwise? So my thinking is that they need to come to the public and say, this is what I think they need to do. Stick a pin in passing this legislation, because in passing it, they're still going to have a whole set of issues. You say that your plan was to consult widely, or you did that consult widely to what end? Come back and say to people these are the issues, and let them see how it is going to impact them. Caswell and I had a conversation about public officers and the payment of contributions and so on. Look at that and show people what's happening. When I pay this contribution, what am I getting out of it at the end of the day? This person is saying, Peter is saying that you're unhappy. And you can stick out and be unhappy, but after that, and you stick out and they're standing in Parliament, they pass the bill anyway. So Mr. Earl can tell me some more but I believe that we should be asking some very specific things of government in terms of what we need for them to say and do to demonstrate that they are serious about serving the interests of Barbados.
If I can say something there, Ms. McClean, I think that because a lot of people, they say to us when we go out on the street, why are you going out there in the hot sun and it's not going to do anything? I mean, one of the things that happened, you saw the pressure, us going out there with the children, all of us that went out. You even heard the Prime Minister now saying, oh, we're not going to do that. Not necessarily that we believe her, but the point is that it adds pressure. And I think that that's one of the things that can be done. But in addition to if you want to do the sick out, then it's also to come up with another measure that will then be able to say, this is why we're doing what we're doing.
But in the second, and let's go back to the issue of the children. While you were going out there, you were also articulating what the issues were, what the challenges were. So I'm saying, okay, we go and we stick out on Wednesday. But if, as Caswell said, if you're a public servant, you can call in sick for 2 days. So they may just treat it as, okay, they had there's a hangover from whatever in the private sector. If you sick out on, if you're absent after the bank holiday, they dock your pay. The point I'm making is that you have to be, as you seek to do that, there's some other critical things that you need to be putting on the table.
What else? So what do you suggest? What else? Do we need to stick out and then hold a press conference? Do we hold a press conference Tuesday and say that we are doing that, or you hold a press conference on the Wednesday? What I'm saying is, let us, let's take this idea and see how can we build on it. I'm going to bring Steve Moore. Before you answer that, Ms. McClean, Steve Moore is waiting to speak. Steve, take a good night. Good to see you. I know you're Bajan living in the US. Take a couple minutes and share, because we want to get into some practical stuff now. Go ahead, Steve.
UK Marcia. Now, first of all, right, with what they want to do, yes, it's good to get out there and march or protest, whatever, in the hot sun and get dehydrated, because I'm very controversial. The first thing that they want you to do is to get up Monday and go out there in the hot sun and get dehydrated, whining your behind, doing nothing while they pass their bill. All right? That is not nice. We've got a government here that is run by family, because it looked like a family affair to me. And all of them are loyal to one person. They're not loyal to the Bajan or the Barbados public. They're not loyal to the poor people of the country. Something needs to be done right away, no matter what. I've always been saying people need to down tools, because it ain't getting any better. Second of all, this airport deal, who negotiated this airport deal? Because from what I know here, the Indians do a tight shift, the Chinese do a tight shift. They walk into Africa and Africans just back down and they get what they want. I'm suspecting that this is the same thing with the airport. Look, I'm so frustrated with what I see in Barbados from here in the UK. I don't know what to think. I'm just pulling me here out. Thank you very much, Marcia. I'm just pulling me here out.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I know you were there in the UK and very concerned about Barbados. But as we think about guys, what can we add to the sick out, to the 1 day, not going in for the Wednesday? What can be added to it, and to take what Ms. McClean is saying to heart, and to let's build on it, guys. And that's what I know Barbadians for. Let me tell you, Jamaicans will go now and just jump off and we're not thinking about anything. You guys are very, very calculative. You're thinking it through, but you're gonna get it done. That's my belief about Barbadians. Let me hear from Miss Lynette Eastman is here. Lynette, let me make sure your mic is open. Hi, Miss Eastman. Thank you for joining. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for putting this session on. I personally, when I first heard about and this was some time ago, I can't remember when it was first announced, the plans that the government had for the national insurance scheme, especially in terms of its the way, in terms of its structure. And I remember clearly one of the things that was said was that the NIS was now going to be used to invest in not just public sector projects, but private projects in Barbados, which sounded to me like a type of investment that normally you would not have for schemes like a national insurance scheme. I heard that very clearly. So it looked as though anybody in the private sector would be able to have access to these funds. I was very, very concerned about that, but very few people seem to have noticed that that was what was said, but it was said very clearly. In terms of the way that things are now being done in the legislature, many of us criticize what we call the Westminster system. But this system that we have is not the Westminster system. The reason that you publish legislation in the Gazette is so you publish it in the Gazette. I mean, this is the old traditional way. It was published in the Gazette, and the Gazette was cheap. And the reason that that was so that ordinary people could have access to the legislation, whether they read it or not, or whether a school teacher, they might have a school teacher somewhere who would go and get it and would always have the Gazette. It meant that people would have access to it. So what has started of late is that when you have legislation, it's not circulated for any period of time whatsoever. CASWELL talks about the people in the Senate and the Parliament and whatever, but traditionally it was so that everybody could have access to it. And it would also mean that you would have time to call your constituency representative and say, look, I hear that they're saying they're going to pass this piece of legislation. I fully understand what it is, but you come and talk to us and tell us really what it means so that we can understand if we support it. Because I don't know how in a democracy like ours, where you vote for a representative, how you could pass anything in Parliament without discussing it with your constituents. You're supposed to discuss it with them first, and then you're supposed to go and represent them in the Parliament and decide if you're going to vote on it or not. So anybody who is going into Parliament who feels that they could just pick up a piece of legislation, talk, and vote for it, they're not pursuing their mandate, their duty as a constituency representative, because they should have had a discussion with their constituents first. And I say this quite often, but people seem to feel it's a joke, but that's how democracies are supposed to work. They're not representing themselves. They're supposed to be representing us who voted for them or who did not vote for them. They're supposed to come and tell us what the bill is about before they're going there and speak. When they're going there and they read it and they speak, on whose behalf are they speaking? It can't be ours because they didn't discuss it with us. And this has been going on for some time. It needs to stop, and people need to insist that it stops. Now, the other point that I would like to make is about demonstrating, marching, and doing whatever else. Yes, you can you can also, for example, make recommendations to the Parliament, to your constituency representative, write letters, say how these changes are going to affect people negatively, see what amendments we can propose, All those things you can do. But I would like to say that within the history of the Caribbean, people demonstrating is what politicians fear most.
Yes.
They fear it so much that in the 60s and 70s, they passed public order legislation to stop people from demonstrating. They passed, who didn't have, they passed new legislation. So Barbados got a new piece of legislation in order to stop people from demonstrating. Trinidad had the Sedition Act for the longest time, but during the 60s and 70s, they ramped it up. And this was across the region. I came across probably only 2 countries in the region that did not double down on demonstrations during the 60s and 70s. And this is why we must know our history, because these things, these uprisings that you have had in the regions, like we talk about the 1930s riots, and we believe that they only have riots in Barbados. They were across the region.
Correct.
In the 60s and 70s, this was also across the region. I mean, the worst probably was in Trinidad, but I will tell you that when people get up and march, their response is, unfortunately, put legislation in place to quell it, make it more expensive for people to do it. And they have also imprisoned people. And in some cases, they have killed people for demonstrating, the political elite within the Caribbean. So this is not a joke, and this isn't anything that is partisan political at all. It has to do with a group of people who believe that they're political elites in the region. They still exist, and they believe that their mandate is not for the development of the region, because with all the assets that the region has, and our greatest assets is wonderful weather, you know, 365 days of the year. There are not many countries in the world that have that asset. And then we have talent, and each country has something that it is known for, but still, we are ranked low on the Human Development Index and continue to fall every year. Why? Because I do not feel that amongst the political elite, that they have any intention to develop the countries of the region any further. And you see, I rebel when I hear this talk about Barbadians being passive and other people not being passive. The problem in the region is the same. And this talk about the differences between Barbadians and Trinidadians and Jamaicans and Guyanese and Vincentians, it is part of the strategy to keep us apart. Because if we were actually to work together in the region for the development of the region, the political elite could not stop us. But they're so confident that we are going to remain divided, that Bajans and like Trinidadians and Jamaicans and like Vincentians and all that kind of nonsense. I think we have to stop that. Yes, we may be different in some ways, but it is superficial. All of the uprisings that you have had in the 30s, the 60s, whatever it is, it was across the region, and there were Barbadians involved just like anywhere else. So that is a fallacy. We may do things differently, but when you look at the end result as to where we are in the region, we're all the same place, still with a class of people that don't look as though they will ever be able to extract themselves from poverty. There are areas in Barbados that you go, that, you know, you go down St. James and you look at the facilities down St. James. Even when people have supermarkets, the ones down the West Coast are better than the ones that they have up on the South Coast. It's a fact, because they're not doing it for Barbadians, they're doing it for the people that visit. And that's just a fact. And then you have people in Barbados who don't have any flooring boards. You might drive along and say, oh, that's a pretty child house. But when you open the door, there are no flooring boards. And you know, the thing that hurts me The politicians in Barbados know this, because they're the ones that push open everybody door and they see what conditions people are living in. And they still don't do anything about it when I think that they can do better. So that's my final point. My final point is that getting out there and marching makes a difference. Politicians sit up and listen and they take action. Now, because one of the things that came to me, I worked dealing with the CARICOM single market and economy for quite a while. I travel around the region and talk to different people, etc. And it only dawned on me recently that you had these uprisings in the 60s and the 70s. And what did the political elite came up with? They signed the Treaty of Chaguaramas to tell the people, we looking after you, all is well. And the people settled down. And they have not sat up again since the 1970s to say anything to the political elite in the region that this cannot continue. I worked on the CARICOM circuit, So, you in Barbados, you see that there's certain people who get jobs. You see there are certain people who people say, man, you can't let him starve, you gotta give him work to do. No matter which party is in power. Well, I saw it on the CARICOM circuit where it was said, that woman, she's his daughter, so she gotta get work, give she a consultancy. So it happens across the region. Well, there are individuals that we pay our taxes to educate them. And then when they come back in this space, because of this preferential treatment of certain people, they don't have the ability to share their knowledge and their skills with us, with all of us. Because I am one of the people who I'm looking for somebody to rise up in the region and do something great. Because I know that I will benefit. Take it being selfish. I know that I will benefit, but we continue to oppress and suppress the people with ability, because my view is that there's a political elite in the region. They all know each other. They meet with each other. And I don't think that they're interested in the development of the region, only to the extent that it continues to be a nice place to live. That's it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's that was a lot of history there, and putting things in context. And I think that was so important. That was like a nice plate of food. That was really, really good. Very good. Thank you so much for your input. And so you're adding to this call to action and saying that the sick out is fine, but one of the things that they fear most, what they fear most is the people on the street. And I saw that with the vaccine when they had the stuff with the injection. I can't say that too much on my thing. And also, with us going out, if you notice all the things that have been coming out against the people who've been going out about the children, because they fear that. They actually came out and said to us, we got messages to tell us don't march. We got those, and so they're afraid of that. They're afraid of the public display. It's going to be embarrassing. They don't want the international people to see any unrest in Barbados. Come on, guys. So in addition, we've got to get out there. We will have to get up. We're going to have to hit the pavement. We got to go out there. It's important to register. It's important to do what Ms. McCLEAN is saying. Ms. McCLEAN is saying, make it very clear as to exactly why we are. If you're going to sick out, why you're sicking out. If you're going to go out, go out and demonstrate why you're going out, be very, very clear. And that can be done with press releases, press conference, organizers. It's Barbados, intelligent people. You do things very orderly. You don't like setting up page and going to be breaking windows and doing all kind of rioting. Although, let me tell you something, they need to be careful, because there is a subculture that is happening here. And if you keep pressing that button, you keep pushing the people I'm sorry. They need to be careful, be very careful of that. It's not the same Barbados that I came to 20 years ago. It's a different set of people, you know. So we have to be somebody here saying we need an academic approach. Yes, we need an academic approach. We need to be able to you know, to get all these ideas, but we got to do something, you know, because we can't just keep talking about it. Emmanuel, you're still here. I don't see you've been hearing and then I'm gonna go to Mr. Franklin and Miss McClean to close off the evening. Go ahead.
I just want to make one small point on the historical front, and this is only because I happen to be doing some research. But during the 60s, when we had some uprisings in Barbados, in that there were meetings and people were talking, etc., etc. One of the things that they did, there was a magazine or newspaper that was published. I don't remember the name of it now, but of course it was considered to be subversive. And the government of the day carried up the price that you had to pay in order to publish a newspaper. And this was just a little newspaper that these people were putting out. So it does not surprise me that you have to pay more money for Zoom now. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
It is the same thing, Lynette.
It's the same thing happening over and over again.
But can I tell you something? The first time that we were going out for our marches, those of you who might not know, I might have just joined. I'm Marcia Weeks, and I'm part of a group, Watch Out My Children, and we conduct several protests. We've conducted several protests and so on in Barbados. And I remember we were going out, and I went to the police, and I love them. They've become my friend. But there's some people there trying to dissuade me, and so they basically more than doubled the price on me for that permit. I don't know if you all remember when I took to Facebook and begged the people. I had no shame. I went on Facebook and I told the people how much it was, and the people, Mr. Franklin, the people gave me 4 times as much to pay that money. And let me tell you something. Do you know that same police service, they contacted me and said, listen, guess what? They overcharged you. And they gave me back the money, which we're able to use for another march. So I agree with you. And I could tell from the conversation that she thought I was going to say, when she started to tell me, you know, this high price, she thought and tell me to bring it the next day at 12 o'clock. She thought I wasn't going to bother. She thought it wasn't going to happen. Listen, I went into character on her, and I just acted like I had the money. And I said, yes, I'll be there. And went straight to Facebook and got that money. And this is why I'm saying that Barbadians, listen, they don't play with Bajan people. Don't play with Bajan people. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Right? And I agree with you. They try to find tactics to make sure that you don't go out there and march, because that is what they are most afraid of. Go ahead, Emmanuel. Do you have anything to add to next steps? Next steps.
Yes, thanks, Marcia, and good night to you, Ms. Eastman. It's good to see you. I think you articulated it very intellectually. What I will say is that most Barbadians listening, and those that will hear about this in the days to come, the reality is that a lot of people find themselves in a lower bracket. There's only a certain percentage of people who may benefit from this change in some form or the other. So for the most part, you know, I think Malcolm X said it best. In order to get action from the people, you have to first wake the people. A lot of people are ignorant to what is really going on. They hear the voice notes, they see the videos, they hear different things, and they're really uncertain as to, okay, so what next? They said we're going to stay home, and like you said, Caswell, and I follow why you would say that. I don't know if I agree with you on that, in that folks might have reservations and not stay home, but the reality is, in their hearts, they may want to. But the people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And the reality is Barbadians are not always informed in order to make informed decisions. So while we have these platforms and we have these conversations, we should always use them, not to intellectualize the madness of government, because we all know from time memorial, the government, whether B or D, there's no difference. They're all really the same. They've done the same thing and played political ping pong with the people's emotions for as long as we can remember. The point I want to bring home is that in order to get the kind of action that we are discussing, in order to bring effect, we have to first understand what is it that we're really asking for. Because we've asked for things ranging from mandates for certain jobs. We've asked for things from different instruments that were infringed on our schools and our children. We've asked for different things from the dress code, the different children protection. We've asked for a lot of things. And at this point, we're still asking, and we are asking and asking and asking and asking, at what time, at what point do we become emotionally and spiritually frustrated enough to recognize we got to stop asking the government to do for us what we ought to be doing for ourselves? They're the administration. We need to first stop calling them government. They're not the government. They're the admins that we put in place to govern our affairs. So we need to start learning and educating ourselves. So I'm going to encourage Marcia and Brother Caswell and the others here to start having conversations with your circles, your groups, on what governance and government really is all about. Empower the people, give the people back the power so they'll know how to make informed decisions. They can't make informed decisions, Marcia. We're looking to have them make emotional decisions. Oh, they're going to work you to death. Yo, come out and let's march. Wait a minute. Some folks are not thinking along those lines, but if they can understand and have a clear realization, well, wait a minute, this is wrong. There's something wrong with this. It's going to affect not only me, but the generations to come. Then we can have the action. In fact, Marcia, you won't even have to ask them to come out. You're going to find right first and foremost that when they go to work, they start asking their boss, listen, you need to stop paying my money into national insurance. I want to take responsibility for my own pension insurance. I want to take my own policy with some other private entity. I don't want to go this route. The whole direction this thing is going is to be privatized. And we know it. Whether they outrightly say it or not, in time to come, if they disrupt it enough and get enough people to be disgruntled by what is happening, they're going to pull out. So in order to get them to respond to the idea of staying home on Wednesday and perhaps Thursday and then going to work on Friday to then go back to work next week, we know the government don't like protests. And again, Ms. Eastman said it. They don't like it. But the reality is, unlike France or Europe or these American, let me use that, where people have known freedom. So when you try to infringe on their freedoms, they act. Barbadians as a people, for the most part, have never known freedom. They're born in captivity. They're born into the idea of governing by people who look like you, which makes Barbados a neo-colony. They won't have the same effect. It won't have the same effect and reaction. So we have to first educate people, let them understand what this is really all about, how it's going to affect them. And I agree, Ms. Eastman, these ministers are supposed to report into the people, but they not, and they have not for quite some time. So in an effort to make them aware, and I'll say this in closing, in an effort to make them conscious of their unconsciousness, what the people have to do, the ones who are mostly oppressed, they have to take a different approach. And the only way out of this is to start re-educating the people, letting them know about their sovereign status, let them know what governance and governing is all about, and stop begging like beggars to these ministers who are just admin, who simply have one intention, and Mr. Caswell said it all evening, their pension isn't being affected. Their paychecks aren't being affected. In fact, their way of life would not be affected. Only the people, and the people who suffer the most are those who feel it. So I haven't said that. If you want action from the people, Marcia, I'm going to agree with you. Things need to happen. But what needs to happen first, we need to have educational forums so that our people are not destroyed for the lack of knowledge.
Yes, that's awesome. And, thank you. Well said. And I think that's what Ms. McCLEAN was getting at as well. And this is what, I don't know if anybody heard the beginning of the show. Mr. FRANKLYN came on and outlined everything, the issues with the two bills. And Ms. McCLEAN came on and talked about how the procedures and how it was done. Lynette came on and added some more. Winston came on and added some more. And I believe, Emmanuel, you have a show. You can continue to do that. I'm going to open up my show again tomorrow night to do that, because it's not going to happen on the traditional media. So we can talk about education. You continue to educate. But as we educate, if we say we're not going to do anything until everybody's educated and educated a certain way, you know, we can use social media. Social media is what we have, you know, and to be able to look at the full, you know, just look at everything and begin to come up with action plan. Mr. Franklin has, you know, he has those in his union. You know, we can do a press conference and send out information. There's so many things that can happen with social media to educate, because that's what's being used right now. You know, we're not going to get it on traditional media, and we have to find in practical ways to get the information out. Before Mr. Franklin or Miss McCLEAN give us a final word. Someone here, I think, misunderstood what I was saying. She wrote, Miss Marcia Weeks, with all due respect, do you believe you should be insinuating breaking windows, etc., as a woman of God, instead of leading the people in a peaceful demonstration to get the point across? Now, let me just say to
Marcia, pardon me, point to the chair. Marcia, pardon me if I may. Let me just briefly say something, because I know you are a godly woman. Let me just say this real quick. As you know, this is the thing with Christians, man, or people who are not Christians. When Christ said he gonna return, he said it's fire and brimstone, though. We passed the day of the white dove. So I'm not suggesting that anybody go breaking any windows. I'm sure Marcia did not suggest that in any way. But if you're going to use Christians and Christianity as a point of reference, Christ said when he returned, he's going to come up with fire and brimstone. That's not no peace, man. And the reality, the fact is, if we need to answer for the removal of the government, in fact, maybe we should be focusing on the removal of the government and not this particular one bill. That's my 2 cents, Marcia.
Yeah. Thank you, Emmanuel, because you guys know me very well. I do everything by the book. The police and I, we're good friends. They always compliment us on all of our protests. What I was saying was that if they keep pushing the people, if they keep pushing them, there is a subculture. You've got to open your eyes, guys. Open your eyes and see. And you know, I still try. Listen, I take the bus sometimes, Emmanuel. Our car was down for a while, and even when the car got back up, I still took the bus, because when you've got to connect with the people, and when you look at those people, Miss McCLEAN, I think I told you, when you take the bus and you look in the eyes of those people, Mr. Caswell, it's not the same people that I saw when I came to Barbados 20-something years ago. Nobody can tell me it's the same. And that's what I'm saying. You have to be careful. They get up and they're doing things, and they're just doing things to people after a time. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying be careful. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. I know it's not Jamaica, and I said that for the entire program. Jamaicans will jump off the ledge and then don't know what's happened. Bajans going to sit down and calculate it, but let me tell you, Bajans going to jump off too. I don't believe Bajans are passive. But anyway, over to Mr. Franklin, who has been there so quiet for so long. What do you say about the sick out? Is it something that we can leave here saying at least that's one thing that we can do, and then we can, you know, plan hitting the streets, and Emmanuel is talking about education. We use the social media and our groups and whatever and continue to educate. Ms. McCLEAN will put all the points of what we're the issues we have, you know, we have the things we have issues with. What are your thoughts, Mr. Caswell Franklin, before we close?
Well, you know, I was one of the proponents of the sick out thing, but what I'm going to tell you is that the people that should be more sick out is the national insurance staff, because they are going to take advantage of them. You see, in the public service, you have a disciplinary process where you go through a lot of tiers before they can get you out. But you don't have those tiers existing when you have a board. And even then, even though with the Employment Rights Act, when you get rid of someone, a lot of government departments don't respond to the Labor Department, don't respond to the tribunal, and it takes years. So national insurance are the people that should start this sick out. Trust me, there should be their future is the most imperiled of all right now. But you said we are going to do some closing, so let me tell you what I want to say. You remember this government when it came in, when they were campaigning for office, this second election, they would say they're in safe hands with the Barbados Labour Party, and everybody cares, and that kind of nonsense. Well, If people believe that, I didn't, but if people believe that, what they are doing now shows that this government has lost all sense of decency. And if they ever had any conscience, they lost that too. What they are doing right now is to take away people's money, but keep theirs. They say we're in this together. Everything they open up, they say we're in this together. But I'm not seeing them losing anything. Not seeing them losing anything at all, right? They created this problem. National insurance was on the way back up. But the actions taken by Owen Arthur, when he became prime minister and he realized the national insurance scheme was in problems, and I was surprised when the prime minister said that when she became prime minister, she discovered that the national insurance scheme had these issues. Now, could there? She was in Owen Arthur's cabinet. I mean, she wasn't paying attention. I got the answer. So she knew very well. But even though she knew that the national insurance scheme could not afford to lose that $1 billion that they took up, then they call it, everybody a little haircut, national insurance could not afford it. They did it anyway. Then they went and they wrote off a lot of debt that was owed to national insurance for people who actually collected people's money, didn't pay in, and then you forgive them for it. Some of them were fathers of important people in Barbados, so you're gonna go after them. I don't say which important people, but I see some smiles. I'm not saying anything because I got to protect Marcia and her show. But they did all of that. They imperiled the national insurance scheme by their own actions. And now, having imperiled the scheme, having taken the money out of the scheme and given it and donated it and do whatever they do to other people, when they shouldn't, because I said to you earlier that they were trustees of the money. The money was not theirs. It is not government money. National insurance funds are not government funds. But the government is the custodian and the trustee of that money. And you take, as a trustee, you take the money and you spend it how you shouldn't. An individual will go to jail for that. But they can't send jail a government. But they both have committed serious lapse of judgment. For a government behavior like this, they should not remain in office for 2 more days. They have sold us out. But having done so, they now expected us to fix it. You took my money that you borrowed from me and now telling me that I have to pay it back. You borrowed my money from me and now asking me to pay it back. And you have extended by 50% the amount of the time that I could qualify for national insurance. And while we're in this together, they didn't say, well, okay, but let's deal with ours too. Because you now will qualify in 14.4 years for national insurance pension. You should do it in 10. They used to qualify for their pension in 8 years, and they still qualify in 8 years. And you're asking me to sit down and allow you to do this to me all the time and say that me cares and that they're in this together and all kind of nonsense. These people should go. I have no qualms about. I don't want a four-party government. I get too old for that kind of thing. But at the same time, we got a young, bright people out there who don't want to get into politics because the politics is a nasty game and they don't want to get into it. But so we have the people in the house right now. If they were not in the house, most of them would be unemployed. Couldn't find a job because they don't have any skills in anything. So they have to stay in there and they have to follow the leader. Because if they don't follow the leader, they will not be a minister and they will not be taking home these fantastic salaries in the Barbados setting that they're taking home now. And then they will qualify for their fantastic pensions from age 50 until they die. And not only that, the public servants lost their widows and children's pension in 1980. MPs have not lost theirs yet. the government repealed the Widows and Children, because if you were a public officer and your wife, and you had a wife and young children and you die, there was a scheme in the public service, a contributory scheme to pay a pension to them. Government wiped it out and kept it for themselves. So this has been going on, and mind you, the Barbados Party did that too. This has been going on and on and on, and people do not know, either do not know or they don't care or they don't understand that these people are self-serving. But I think this should be the last straw. This should be the last straw. This should be the one that breaks the camel's back. Because look, you can't tell me that you have seen it fit to lower the pension age from 68 because 68 was too long. And I tell you something, we got people who are hanging on in the public service because a lot of public service departments make people sick. Unhealthy buildings, terrible bosses, and people get sick and they're waiting for retirement. Unless that changes under this new dispensation, people will still be getting sick earlier and wanted to come home, but they got to wait for 68. This government did not tell us that they were going to do all of these things that they're doing. That is what a manifesto is for. And if you're going to change everything that you didn't tell us you were going to change, it should be time for you to come back to the people. You know, that's what manifesto is about. If you look at the Westminster system, government publish a manifesto, and the whichever party wins, the civil service take the manifestos and start making plans. Not happening in Barbados. A plan comes up when the Prime Minister has a brain wave, like hearing brain. And then everybody rushes in to support what she is saying. Like she understands. She understands much. But she gets her way because, you know, I remember former minister in the Barbados Party government, I was complaining that the MPs, the current MPs, didn't have any testicles. I didn't call them that. I called them the other word. And he said, no, they do have them. I said, they're not men. I said, they ain't got no testicles. He said, no, they got them. Just like them, I got no hair on them. The little boys.
Oh, Lord. Oh, boy, Mr. Franklin. This is a family show. All right, Mr. Franklin, you know, somebody said, you know, listen to you, not that part, but listen to you, make them, let them wanted to cry. I think I saw that and I tried to put it up. You know, because when, she says, oh dear, listening to Caswell is making me cry. Because when you look back and you see all that has happened, really, you know, how we've been taken for a ride, you know, and it's sad. It is sad. Miss McCLEAN, what do you wanna say to us as we close? And I saw Mr. Clark came back in. Okay. I let him say something as well.
Okay, I want to start by I made a note while you were speaking, but I want to make a comment in relation to what Peter Earl put up there. And what he is saying is true. People may be out there walking up. The beautiful thing about the Marcia Week show, it does not disappear after it's finished for the evening or the afternoon, depending on when the show is there. So it is something that can be and should be shared with persons. I'm happy to see that you had over 500 persons watching. And I also want to incorporate something that was said by Emmanuel. Basically, for me, and I think for those who might have joined the program late and not be sure what it was we were talking about, the introduction of two critical pieces of legislation on Friday, the 28th of July, was done in a manner that demonstrated gross disrespect to Barbadians. The notion, as spread about by the minister, that there was wide consultation with various stakeholders is not consistent with the haste with which the NIS amendment bill was introduced and debated. What the workers of Barbados need is full disclosure of what is proposed, how it is going to affect workers, because in relation to national insurance, it is the critical information about the change in qualification for the age of qualification, but it is also about the operations of national insurance. And therein lies the concern I think Emmanuel raised about privatization. Barbadians cannot forget why in 1967, after passing the legislation in 66, the national insurance scheme was set up. As one of the commercials says, it has been and will continue to be the lifeline for Barbadians. Private pensions and all of those things come and go. Insurance agents sell you all kinds of things, and when you think you know what you want, you do not know. I would say to Barbadians, do not talk about telling your employers not to before your deductions. It is a scheme that has responsibilities on the part of employees and employers. It is one of the best things that we could have done for the working class people in Barbados. However, and I will not go over what Caswell said, we know the issues of the funds over the years. In fact, as I listen to people try to rewrite history, I will tell people that if they want to understand in the last 15 to 20 years what has happened in the National Insurance Fund, go and talk to the former directors. One of them is now a senior public officer, having been promoted into the direct public service, and find out what was done incorrectly. But the scheme is one that is beneficial. Tell us why you're changing it. Unfortunately, the minister himself confessed that in negotiations with the IMF, they have been pressured, this is my word, to make certain changes. The question I ask, therefore, is, are we really operating, when we see the government move like this, on a timetable or set a timeline set by the IMF, as opposed to looking to streamline a system that was introduced, as I said, to be a serious lifeline? What we need to have is a demand for answers, explanations, and revisiting of any elements that perhaps are not in the best interest. Bad decisions were taken on and as I repeat myself, Caswell gave us the details. Almost $2 billion written off is a significant amount of money in out of the fund. And it is part of a set of brash decisions that were taken. And I believe that we as Barbadians are owed better explanations. I endorse the whole issue of education. We in Barbados, Caswell and I come from the credit union movement. I would say 40 years. In my case, he would have been involved before. That has been another area, subject for another discussion, that people seem to want to put under pressure. It is about controlling the assets that belong to the people. If you think in terms of a single pool of resources that belong to the people, national insurance is one of those. And we therefore need to focus on righting anything that is wrong. But as Caswell said, if it is not broke, don't fix it. If it needs strengthening, if it needs greater improvements, fine. But from what I'm seeing, some of this would put resources, based on the limited discussion that I heard coming from spokespersons from the government of the day, will put this perhaps in greater jeopardy than it is. We need to have the people's money protected. And part of doing that is ensuring that we ourselves understand what are the implications for us and to be able to monitor and so on. But I am one to seek solutions. Marcia knows me very well. And therefore, my first course is to ask the government to get to the people and let us know exactly. They didn't debate this bill. There was a statement made by the minister, and some comments made by the other minister, and neither bill would have been treated in a way that was required. And therefore, I think they need to go back to the drawing board, stick a pin, and come to the people to talk about what they're supposed to be doing, why, how, and with what effect. And until they do that, pass, because I will guarantee you, Marcia and colleagues, that when this bill is passed, and I say when on Wednesday, because once somebody put in thing there, they have the numbers. Passing the bill is one thing. Making the bill work, in other words, once you lift it off the paper and try to translate it into administering the piece of legislation, we will see the problems that will arise, whether it is about talking about the public servants direct, specifically in relation to the pensions amendment, or whether we talk about whole national insurance. And it is critical that we find ways to ensure that what Emmanuel suggests, and I hope I'm citing you correctly, that there is perhaps a plan, not as covert as some people may want to think, that they'd have it to privatize what is the significant, or should I say the major, the only real significant pool of resources belonging to every Barbadian, particularly ordinary Barbadians. And so I think government owes us a lot more in terms of explanation, consultation, and the incorporation of inputs from the people, rather than some cursory drive-through parishes say that they're consulting widely and cannot demonstrate to us where they have inserted the outcomes, or the findings, or whatever you want to call the conclusions or ideas from those consultations. Because you negate all of that by coming on a Friday evening when Barbadians are looking to go to the supermarket because it's the end of the month party, prepare for 2 bank holidays and the next one to come, and do something like this, and not even have sitting in Parliament. Because I tell you, go and look at the optics, go and look at the videos and see what the optics are like. Not even having the representatives sit there to appear to be interested in a serious piece of legislation. That's my take, Marcia.
Yes, thank you, Ms. McCLEAN. It's an honor to have you on, and I'm so happy. I know I'm going to, Winston, I know you're there. I just want to, those who took me on this evening and agreed to come on, Ms. McCLEAN, and to Mr. Franklin, thank you so much for what you added and the education for me, and I'm sure for everybody who's watching, and for Miss Lynette Eastman, who came on and just so brilliantly gave us that piece of history, which I loved it, because it kind of put a lot of things in context, and Emmanuel for coming on and for the wisdom that he imparted, and the push for educating. And I believe once Bajans are educated, they will move. Winston, you have the final word. So give us, share with us, and thank you, Winston, for jumping on as well. We so appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Marcia. All I'm going to say is that in asking the government to give us answers, I don't believe they will be forthcoming, because we need to be candid with ourselves, right? We know that in raising the age to 68 relative to pensions, that they're just playing for time, all right? They've taken the money from the NIS, and in a couple of years, if we do not put our hands down and stop them, it will be depleted. All right. And the only thing we can do is to take the necessary stand. Emmanuel said that there's they're going towards privatization. And this has been said, and the facts are there. It is going that way. All right. But we know, we need to take the necessary stand relevant to it. Because if we do not, nobody will be getting any pension. It will get to that. It will eventually get to that. Okay? And people will have worked for years for naught. All right? And I keep saying all the time that we need to, instead of reacting, to act. Okay? Instead of asking, we need to enforce. Because we are asking for what is rightfully ours. You know what I'm saying? We are asking for what is rightfully ours. And that's not the way it's supposed to be done. Okay? What is ours should be given to us. All right? And I know there are many different opinions relevant to what we should do as far as to show our displeasure. Okay? But I will ask people, please, to get in contact with you, Marcia. All right? Since they know your contact number, you can leave it.
And I would also say to Mr. Franklin, can they reach out to your union as well, or to you as a person? Can you, if they want to do the sick out or they want more information?
Oh, they're already reaching out.
They're already reaching out. Very good.
My phone, and I'm saying some people telling me they're ready.
Yeah.
So some WhatsApp messages come through. But I was falling down looking at there just when you were talking. These were people that they're ready. So the people
they're
have
ready.
gone.
Okay.
Ready, yeah,
so
ready.
I will defer to you, and I will pass all information to you, sir. And I'm sure Emmanuel will get information from his shows, and because he's in with a lot of people as well, Winston as well, and we, will gather the information. Okay, as we receive them. Yes, continue, Winston. You were closing.
No, I was saying I wanted to do that. I wanted to say that because I've been getting messages on my phone as it is right now. So I was trying to defer to you so that we can have the USL as well, all right, and defer so that we can have a unified body as far as this is concerned and a plan as far as how to go ahead, all right. But it's time that we act as opposed to reacting, all right.
Yes,
and that's all I have to say relative to it, all right. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Thank you. And it's so good to have you and Emmanuel on. You were part of that first team that led that march, that walk, that really had the government. There was a large number of people on the street, and I just want to honor you yourself, Emmanuel, because it was a joint effort with Bongo Lights, Lumumba. I'm just calling names that I remember. I don't know all the names. If you're listening and you are part of it, please forgive me. But I just call in the names I remember that you worked together to make that happen. And I see something else is going to be happening here again. Thanks to everybody for joining. You can bet we're going to be on again tomorrow at 7, because if we're doing something on Wednesday, we're going to keep this going until we got to get the word out. And I say we will talk, Emmanuel, we will have a talk, and we need to use the social media. Use it and keep pushing it. Share this live, whatever Emmanuel does, whatever Winston does, or whomever has a platform. If you have a platform, use the platform. Use your Facebook page. Use your Instagram page. They can't stop you. Use it, because we cannot get into traditional media. They're not going to take this kind of thing. There's no brass tacks, to my knowledge, in the next 2 days. So we've got to push with social media. Those of you who are interested in the issue with Haiti, I'm going to be on tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock speaking to Haitians, because they're also dealing with some issues there where CARICOM is basically treating them like they're, as I put it, a bastard child. So they're coming on to talk about that and the impending, I'm using a word, they didn't use it, but I'm calling it invasion into Haiti that they want to do. So we want to look at that and to see what is it that CARICOM is really saying to Haiti. So we have some Haitians coming on 9 o'clock tomorrow on CARICOM Day. Tomorrow we're going to be dealing with that, and we're going to be back on the Marcia Week show back on at 7. Emmanuel and I will have a chat, and we will discuss some things about how we can use our social media to continue to get the word out. Thank you, everybody. Share the live, guys. Share the live. This is serious business. We mean business. It's a call to action. All right? Call to action. God bless you all. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Right.